Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to our live stream again. Today with wonderful Akshay, our new joiner, Sam, Mike,
Hey
and
guys.
myself. Woo. And I'm just finding my way about the panels in StreamYard. Oh, now we don't have it. Cool.
There's a question in the chat already. Here for the tacos. Okay. Tacos. Tell me more in the chat about these tacos, because now I'm hungry.
Do we get?
Yeah.
So we're moving from pizza to tacos.
I guess so. I was shocked to learn that in Austria it's hard to find good tacos.
Impossible, nearly impossible, I would say.
What's up with
Why
that?
is that?
The Alps, I don't know. Maybe it's the other side of the world. Like, no. Just like
that was universally like.
yeah, there's like actually like not a lot of Mexican places around in Austria that actually serve good food. I only know one Mexican restaurant in Vienna, even so. The
Wow.
choice is very limited. You have a lot of other stuff, but Mexican not so much. Yeah, but we have
India
this.
has
Yeah,
a lot of good Mexican joints lately.
interesting.
Yeah,
Run by Indians or Mexicans?
I'm not sure, but yet they do serve decent Mexican food.
Ah, nice. Well, that sounds amazing. Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
not really Mexicans moving to Austria. Yeah, in the comments.
Maybe it's too cold. Too cold.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Cool.
we always start with food, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's good.
been a
It's a good start. Yeah.
Why
We also
not?
have this. Yeah. Sorry, Sam, go.
Oh, okay. So on the topic of tacos, then, when you get to order, the best taco, like what is your taco of choice? Because there's some really good taco places where I live, and I have a hard time choosing. So sometimes I have to get like one of this kind, and one of that kind, and one of this kind. So I'm curious, like, what's your taco of choice?
So, like, last time I ate good tacos was when I visited my family in Texas, right? So they are on the border to Mexico, and we went to Matamoros. And actually, I really liked barbacoa. Really delicious. Yeah, was really good. Like just like street food, tender, like fully fatty, and some lime on top. Amazing.
Can you
Yeah.
explain to anyone who might not know what barbacoa is, what it is?
Not exactly. Is it? Do you know? Can you explain it?
It's a slow roasted beef in like a sort of Mexican inspired sauce. So it really gets kind of in there. So it's like pulled beef taco, but like in a sauce,
Yeah.
just depending on how they do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's like cooked for like a day at least because it just like melts.
If you have a pressure cooker, you can do barbacoa in the pressure cooker in a couple of hours, which is pretty good. I'm a fan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sam knows the deal.
I like to cook. It's one of those things. What about you, Mike? What's your taco? Your go-to?
I don't think I am deep enough into tacos to really have a preference, to be honest, because I've been for a long time living in a place where we don't eat too many tacos, like Akshay said now a little bit, but like, yeah. So, yeah, tacos are good.
What about you, Akshay? You've had some exposure to some good tacos lately.
No, actually, I tried tacos once, so I realized it's not my kind of.
Nice.
Wait, you wrote off tacos in general because you tried them once and they were not good. Is this what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so
No, this is unacceptable. I'm coming to India to make you tacos. That's what's happening. Sorry.
done. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'm the only one that has access to all these amazing kind of tacos, so I will indulge you. Fanciest taco I've had recently was cactus. So
Ooh.
I don't know what kind of cactus, but it was a vegetarian one, and they had slow cooked it in a similar kind of sauce to a barbacoa, but it was like really, really nice and interesting. And I also love, it's like maybe a little basic of me, but I love fish tacos. So the same as a lot of the pubs here if they have fish and chips on the menu, will then make a fish taco out of the little bits of the codfish that are not big enough to be impressive in a fish and chip plate. So they'll beer batter them like they would a fish and chip, but then they wrap it in the taco. And so it usually comes with a soft shell with spicy mayo and coleslaw, and then the fish and like a little hot sauce. Well, that's what I had for dinner last night. Fish tacos. So
Learned something new today.
right, I know. Okay,
I forgot the name. There's one YouTuber that I sometimes watch, and he just like released this video where he like eats like I think 40 tacos in 24 hours in Mexico City, and he goes through all the different kinds of tacos.
does he eat the whole taco, or does he just have like a bite of the taco and do a
At the
review?
start, he starts with all. He ends with not all, but like yeah.
It's too
Yeah,
many
I think we're
tacos.
making people hungry because
Too many tacos.
somebody says I should have eaten. Owner says I should have eaten before joining.
Yeah, like, yeah, that
Always.
actually is true.
Always.
That's true.
Rule of thumb. I also have a new way for us to do get to know you questions for the people of the audience. You guys up for it?
Definitely.
Okay.
Shoot at us.
So I was gifted this deck of cards, local Toronto-based artist, and so there's like lots of them. And the back is a different conversation starter. So I'm just gonna choose one at random, and I'll pre-screen it to make sure it's not, irrelevant. All right. Let's go. This one. Tell me about something you want to learn. Akshay, you go first.
I really want to learn Spanish. So, yeah.
So you can order your tacos in Spanish.
Yeah, it'll help there.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's been in my mind for a while.
Are you going to try any of the online language learning tools to learn Spanish, or have you thought about that at all?
Not really. There are actually local classes here as well, where they
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Very cool. In the spirit of this live stream and you bringing up language learning, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that Babbel, which is a language learning platform, actually did their new rebrand and platform expansion using Token Studio, which is pretty cool. And they did a whole case study on that they presented at Into Design Systems, which was awesome. So
Today it's Taco Studio.
Taco Studio.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just read that. Like, yeah.
So this is why we don't have the live stream on Tuesdays. You guys probably don't know, but in this side of the world, basically anywhere that you go on a Tuesday that will try to sell you discounted tacos, but you have to buy a drink at the same time. So it's Taco Tuesday, but it's not. It's
Oh,
Thursday.
original. Yeah.
I know. All right, Mike,
Nice.
what about you? What's something you want to learn?
What's something I don't want to learn? But yeah, I set myself up for this big learning task of building like a 6 degree of freedom robotic arm, and that is a bit of a long learning journey, I guess, because there's a lot of things I have to learn. But yeah, if there's one thing that I've been like really set on to get that built, yeah, that's been it for a while. So not getting too much time these days, but yeah, slowly but steadily. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that.
Nice. What about you, Marco?
Yeah, well, at the moment I'm trying to get into Unreal Engine a bit, kind of. So to understand how Unreal Engine works, and like since our graph engine development is close to some stuff in Unreal Engine, get inspiration for sure. But like the driving force behind it is actually that I want to be able to like bring my son's ideas into a game that he can actually experience a game that he imagines.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Unreal Engine gives you a lot of like fast iteration at the moment already. So if I'm able to really like bring a bit of his fantasies into that world, I hope that I can show him a different way of like what a computer is able to do, right? Like, so I think Sam, we talked about this. My approach with technology and kids is kind of like I want them to see it like computers not as media consumption device, but like more as like a tool. And if I manage to make this happen for him, then I'm happy. Like if it then like plays 20 hours a day, I can't stop him at some point, right? But like I just still want him to understand it's a tool that enables you to do stuff first. And yeah, we can't stop it anyways. I played hours and hours and hours when I was a kid, right? Yeah, it just happens.
Yeah, I think the doom scrolling is mostly where you get stuck, right? Like that's, I think that thing is real.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's crazy to think about what video games were like when we were younger versus what they are now. And like you're talking about being able to sit down with your little one and, oh, what kind of game do you want to build? And you can build it and see it in something that is such high fidelity that you almost look like you could step into the game and it would look real if you want to go to that level of fidelity. It's just wild. And like,
Well, Unreal Engine 5 is crazy. Like it is a completely different thing.
yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah, so actually, like what we are trying now is, since I'm a lot into videography and photography, right? Like, so for some people that might notice, we actually try to let him imagine a script for a Lego movie, since he loves to play Lego. So we're actually trying to set this up, and I'm working out how I can build a motion rig for Unreal Engine that we put the TV behind the Lego and really film it with lights and everything, kind of like, and then have the Unreal background on the TV. And that is I'm just working a bit on the RGB lights. Since I have these controllable RGB lights, I should be able to talk to these or use controllable RGBs and also control the lighting of the scene. That's also just like make crazy stuff with him, show him what's possible.
So cool. There's,
But we also go out of the house, just say, okay, like we're not. It sounds like we.
When was the last time you were out of the house? Like?
Anyway, we have like he has his karate belt exam next on Saturday, 2 days. Woohoo! Yeah, so we are training for that too.
Wow. There's a little shop on my street that sells goods that are in the Museum of Modern Art, and every year at Christmas they have a world-class Lego builder come in and do a window display. And it's unlike anything I've ever seen before in my life. We're not talking about regular Lego blocks. Like they build moving sculptures with like cannons or whatever. It's just wild. So this year, Christmas, I will send you a little video of the window display. It's different every year. And it's like one of my favorite things to see when I walk by is the crazy Lego sculpture that they build. I think I actually have a photo of one somewhere because I presented it at one of the conferences I spoke at a few years back as like an analogy for design systems. Surprising enough. What do I want to learn? Well, I've been a long time trying to teach myself how to draw, which
I gave up on that topic.
It's frustrating because I have many siblings and most of them are very good at drawing and I am not. I've always just been it's just like not the creative thing that I'm good at. And I ended up watching this TED Talk at some point where it was an animator from Disney. And he said, when you're starting to learn to draw, the most frustrating part is that what you have in your head and what comes out of your hand almost never match. Because your hand takes a long time for that muscle memory to get good. Like my circles are never circular. My squares are always, wonky. And so his recommendation was to draw a big circle on a page and then draw some like smaller circles within that circle and then different sizes, but then fill in all the little gaps with all these little tiny circles. And once that starts to feel good, then you do that again in the other direction. And then when that starts to feel good, then you move to like a square and then you do it in both directions in a triangle. Well, I'm like a year in and I'm still struggling on the circles because my hand fatigues, I get tired. I'm like, why am I drawing circles? But I have notebooks now of just like circles on circles. But I notice now when I try to draw, like I have this book on how to draw botanicals, like plants and stuff. And I notice now that my petals are looking more even and things are starting to look more like, not totally garbage. So it's good. I'm making progress, which is great. But yeah, I didn't realize it was so hard because all my siblings just make it look so easy. They're like, oh, you want to draw like a botanical scene? Here, I'll just sketch that up for you. I'm like, oh, I hate you. I'm like a collage person, not like a drawing person. So
Unreal Engine also helps there a bit. I mean, like not for the drawing, but actually for storyboarding. because you have a lot of assets. So it's actually quite nice if you really want to do storyboarding, because you just drag the assets in, frame your camera, and to take screenshots, and then you can actually do quite fast storyboarding for people that can't draw.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good approach actually. I loved
Like-
it.
So the lack of being able to draw is not a barrier to using the tool, which I think is really awesome. You just like get around that.
Yeah, just need to find your
Yeah.
way, right?
Sweet.
Cool.
It's awesome.
So, what
nice.
topics do we have in the pipeline for today? We are like 16 minutes in, and people just still hear us like talk around. I hope like everybody enjoys that. Yeah,
I know. I
Someone
want to.
just called it Tacos Studio.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have to open that.
Really.
I am going to show some stuff from the plugin. However, like all good demos, I got a build this morning and I'm still, working through my file and making sure that nothing breaks. So I would love to do that in like 20 minutes while I finish testing.
That's why we are like taking some time today. Oh, that's good. We can also look at the graph engine. Actually, Mike, you maybe want to like head this, and we also have Akshay here to show some stuff about PenPod today. So, yeah.
Actually, maybe you want to introduce yourself so folks know who you are. This might be the first time they're like, who's this cool Akshay person in the blue shirt?
Yeah.
So I am from India. I've been working in Token Studio since the past 6-7 months, primarily on the Token Studio PenPod project as an engineer. So that's the short of it. And it's
Alright.
been pretty dope working here.
So, Akshay, how did you find your way into this mess of hooligans at HEMA / Token Studio / all the things?
How did I find my, as in how did I reach Mike?
Yeah, how did you like get into this circle of madness?
Okay, so it started with me contributing to the PenPod core code base, which is open source, as most people know. So since I was doing that, then I eventually reached out to its CEO, Pablo. So who in turn referred me to Mike, and then it's how it started. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you were doing good work, open source contributions, and then Mike was like, well, I guess maybe we should give this person a job. Is that how it happened?
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's the short of it, really. Yeah, you can say that.
Mike, what did you see in Akshay that made him stand out to you?
Yeah, this may also, it is an interesting one actually, because this is a good example of well, probably my favorite hiring approach, and that is finding a really cool person in a pull request. Because yeah, you almost can't find a better person than somebody who's using your product and contributing to it and who's excited about it, and we're open source. And when somebody is contributing, it just feels naturally like that is already one like sort of huge green flag. Knowing the product already, being comfortable with an open source code base. So in fact, later today we have somebody else who also came to us through a pull request, which is Andrew, who's also going to be here with us today. So yeah, and I think so. Yeah, that's like Akshay mentioned, and then I was talking with Pablo, and we were I was asking him that like, okay, can I get a list of your contributors, and let's talk to them first when we are trying to start building this. And yeah, Akshay was one of them, and yeah, I think we instantly hit off, and we got started. So it's been awesome actually from the beginning. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. So we were going to talk a bit about the graph engine and a bit about PenPod. So Akshay may show some stuff. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about PenPod first. I hope the dogs in the background are not too crazy there. But yeah. Okay. So we've been talking about PenPod a bit already. So of course we are bringing the sort of the entire arsenal of functionality that we have in the Token Studio plugin today. We're bringing to PenPod. We are also bringing a bunch of other things to PenPod related. So we are also working on the early explorations of the integration of our graph engine and seamless connection with a bunch of other tools. And what we're also doing in this entire initiative is kind of a larger initiative, which is trying to make a next contribution to a wider sort of standardization and interoperability. So this is again a bit connected to Style Dictionary. In the first stream that we had since a while, Jordan was here and he spoke about Style Dictionary, and especially Style Dictionary 4. So originally this was, of course, the project that was started by Danny Banks and a few others at Amazon. Unfortunately, the project was no longer maintained for the last 2-3 years almost, and we decided after speaking with the folks over there that we would adopt the development of the project, and we've brought out version 4 now. It's about to be released, which is amazing. Almost a year of really hard work, and now we have this central engine, which is really your design token dictionary or your design token library, which has all these core functions that you need to effectively really run a very performant design token library that has all the flexibility and capability that you already know from Style Dictionary and all the features that you actually are maybe already knowing from Token Studio. So we're transforming these different pieces to really good, abstracted open source projects like Style Dictionary, like the Graph Engine, like Penpot and the collaboration that we have there. So these pieces will really bring us, I think, to the next level. And what is really exciting is that Penpot will be the first product actually that runs the entire design token layer, the data layer, and all the transformations and everything purely on Style Dictionary. So that's really amazing. That means that we will have like a zero config integration with your Style Dictionary pipelines. You'll get everything out of the box that you're used to. You can configure it from an engineering point of view. You can configure it from the UI. Of course, it runs out of the box. But yeah, this is really powerful, and we're really creating that one data layer for your design data between different places. So I think that is super exciting from a more architectural perspective. And there's really some amazing work that's been done on this by Jordan, of course, and by Akshay and Florian, who are working on Penpot to get this all going. But yeah, on the Graph Engine, Marco, I knew you had something in mind. I think you asked me to show some stuff, but
Oh, it looks like there's some audio issues, Marco. I don't know.
Really?
Somebody's saying that they can barely hear us, so maybe.
No, he was talking about the dogs.
The dogs, Keegan said that the dogs are barely noticeable.
okay, that's good.
Pause. I retract my statement.
Since we're using StreamYard, I can't do anything anyways. So
We'll
we can
figure
all
out the
just
tech
do
at
that
some
about
point.
all good,
Yeah.
all good. Yeah. For the Graph Engine, I think we're just gonna jam on it a bit, see what we can do, show off the new changes. We released it on beta now. You can work on it. Just showing off some of the features. We have some demo graphs in there. We're working on documentation. So we're actually in a very good flow on the Graph Engine, and want to just show off and give you some first insights, what we're working on. UI will change, stuff will change, right? But we are happy for early adopters and actually alpha pioneers that actually help us find all the edge cases and the problems you face, and what you would love to change. Also, I think most of our audience is design related, so I think it might make sense to also give us UI feedback at some point, because we are a product company and we focus on the product mostly. Let's say it like this: we want to have the features there, and then we focus on the UI to make it nice and polished. So bear with us if you're not if some
I think
colors
especially
might
on the
not match.
Graph Engine, it's
Yeah.
been that kind of a journey, right? Because it's it was a journey. I think it's we've been solving so many different aspects on an architecture level that I think that was the most important thing to get it right. And now I think we've really reached the stage where we just have to make it intuitive and easy to use, while not losing out on, let's say, the flexibility and the scalability. Yeah, is it an idea that I just kind of go to the beta that is live since yesterday and or day before?
I think let's do Akshay first, because I would love to put Graph Engine at the end, because we always
Okay.
tend to not end
All right, so that's right there.
Otherwise, like Sam and Akshay will speak at like midnight, like my midnight, not yours, because yours is in
Okay.
half an hour. So, Akshay, should we give the stage to you?
Yep.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Nice, cool.
Share my screen. Hopefully, I am.
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay, I need to give it permission.
The stage with you. And yeah, so for the people that don't know Penpot, while actually starting it up, Penpot is an open source alternative to Figma. They're having some great product out there already, and you should definitely check it out. I think it's like really cool version, and we unfortunately lost Akshay. Woohoo! That's like, yeah, probably he needs to add some permissions.
Yeah.
I just
yeah,
add Mike back. While we do this. Yeah, but like, are there some people in the audience actually that haven't used Penpot yet or haven't taken a dive into it? Would love like actually like what questions would you have to Penpot actually, or what are your like, yeah, just like let us know like how you feel about that.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there was quite some excitement from the moment Penpot came out. I think it was the first sort of open source company that really tried to make a serious move in the space. And I think there's been great development since then. Kind of come out of alpha, out of beta, and I think it's becoming a very powerful design platform, and also some interesting approaches on making it inclusive for developers and designers, right? Because I think eventually a product will really work well if designers and engineers can work together in a tool and achieve the goals that they both want. And I think yeah, it's going in a great direction.
I think we can also see that the market is now starting to open up a bit more for like maybe also get Figma a bit like more like into moving again.
Yeah, well,
with,
like it is, it's interesting, right? Because for quite a few years it was quiet, but now we saw Pen.com. We just seen Motif move global, right, with their design platform, which is quite impressive, to be honest, as well.
the
There have been some
performance is
other
crazy,
initiatives.
right? Like the performance
yeah,
of
yeah.
Motif is like, so like we all know that problem of like this large Figma files that some people build, right?
Yep.
Some of them might be yourself, where you get your nice RAM notification Figma. Like in Motif, I saw like Mike and I had a file open and he like added tons and tons of layers. Like we were not that million they told, but like definitely at like the limit for Figma.
Yeah.
And it was performing like we had like 2 frames in there. It's really cool.
Yeah.
The only time
Yeah,
it like
it was,
showed loaded was
yeah.
when you pasted. This was the only time.
It was almost the same wow effect as when you used Figma for the first time and you thought it was so
Yeah.
performant, right? Like, and it was, but then people started doing big things, right? And I think it's interesting. But yeah, it's been quiet on the scene, right, for a bit, and now there's all this movement. Actually, there's some other interesting projects as well. I don't know if you've ever seen this project. It's called Lunacy. It's also open source. It has some interesting stuff in it. It's a bit. I don't feel it has as much potential, but it's also been around for a while.
Plasmic.
Huh?
Plasmic is also there.
Plasmic, yeah, of course, yeah. Plasmic is great, and I think that they have pivoted a lot more in the real design and code environment. I think they're the only, honestly, the only tool that I find has successfully done that. Most of the no-code platforms or low-code platforms, they're really horrible to use. Yeah, Framer, I think, hasn't really nailed it for me because, yeah, I mean, we tried to do some stuff with it, but you're still dealing with the conflict between their canvas and the actual code. I don't think it really maps one-on-one, as far at least that's my experience. Maybe it's fixed now. It was a while ago, and we're using Framer for our website, so great product. Like, but yeah, on the design and code piece integrated, I think Plasmic seemed quite the most scalable at the moment. They also, I don't know if they're fully open source already, but I saw really cool news a while ago that they were going to open source their editor, and I think most of the product, which I think is amazing, because I'd love to see what people build on top of that. Seems like a perfect platform to build a digital platform, right? Like where you have content creation and all that. So yeah, curious to see where things go, but I see just one thing. There's not going to be one design tool and one code stack. There's going to be many, and we have to move data between, so we have to keep at it, I guess, to make sure that keeps happening.
Yeah. Actually,
said
are you
that,
ready? Yeah.
I guess I should be able to share now.
Try it.
Maybe start
Show
the
us
whole thing.
if it works.
Yeah.
Then we leave the stage and give it to you. Does it work? I'm going to remove Sam. She's anyways working on a Figma file.
Okay. No, wait.
You're starting to freeze when you start sharing. I don't know if StreamYard is that intense on the machine, but it could be.
Yeah, we need some background music for this kind of situation, Marco. Like, don't we have a tune?
Yeah. There's like I think you can do.
Oh yeah, now we can. Now I see your screen coming up. I think Marco
Yes.
has promoted.
Yep. Now it's there,
Okay.
and I'll put you. Oh no, that's wrong. Wait, I'm gonna do this one, and then we're gonna.
All right, take it away, Akshay.
Okay, so this is the Penpot canvas, and on the left-hand side we have the tokens tab, which we have built, and we can create right now these 7 type of tokens. And I've got some cool cards today where I can show some demonstrations. I have created some tokens beforehand. Also, I would like to show the reference token, which was worked on this week actually by Florian and Joran. So, for example, let's see the value of this first. It is 20. So if I make a large radius token, which will refer the medium. So now we have a token which references the radius medium, and this works using style dictionary underlying this, so which my mic was speaking about earlier.
And I also see that you already added some math in there, right?
Yeah.
So we are also able to already add math in the token. Okay. So some people might know that we already have this option by two. Oh, now it's getting crazy. That we are also able in the plugin to do this with some tokens, like a little hidden gem. But yeah, that's really cool to add that. Cool. Go ahead.
If I just apply this here, so you can see this token which I did actually 2 into 2, which is around 80. And on the right hand side, you can see on the drop down of radius, we can see the different tokens which we have for us. And since this is highlighted, it means that 80 is being applied via a token actually, and we can see which token that is.
Nice. So we already have like the visualization of what is tokenized, what not, kind of.
Yeah, precisely.
Nice. That's really cool. Yeah.
Also, we can add it on particular corners. Add medium. Left-hand side. Yep. We can add it on the right. Yep.
Oh, asymmetrical. That's always tricky for brands to do this. But cool, yeah. Nice. Okay.
And
Cool.
we can.
Yeah.
I also wanted to show some layout tokens. So, for example, if I create like a flex or a grid layout.
So that's something we maybe also want to explain a bit on Penpot, right? In Figma, we currently have like our scalings kind of like, or we have like, we can fill and we can like have these options, right? But Penpot has a few other layout options that are closer to code, which is like grid layout, for example, which is amazing, which I would love to see.
It came out very recently in Penpot 2.0, the grid layout.
Yes. So are you going to show us some grid layout?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to shut up and let you do this and explain maybe what you're doing.
just add a grid layout, and I have some dimension tokens with me. So if I just change the spacing of it, cap, and as you can see, it has applied to how much was. Yes, it has been applied. I'm not sure why is this not highlighting. Maybe we'll have to check that. Just check which. Okay.
Well, we are in our working environment. This is all work in progress, right? So what we share here is work in progress, but it's
Yeah.
lovely to see that come to life.
We can add the paddings as well. And add it below. Yeah. This is some of the things which we can do in layout. This was grid. Penpod also has the option for a flex layout as well, which I guess is more similar to Figma, right?
Yeah, that's closer to Figma. What actually Figma does. Yeah, I would love if they really also like start using the kind of like similar names like we have in web. That would also help like kind of to like lower this barrier between development and code.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's lovely to see that. So how many types of token types do we already have that we can work with? Kind of, we have like border radius, dimensions, right? I know that one
Right
kind
now,
of.
yeah. Dimensions, we have opacity, we have rotation. So if I just quickly show for rotation, I have one at 45. If I apply this turns 45 degrees. Then we have for sizing, which alters primarily the width and height. So it became really small. It was 10, I guess. Yeah. And we have spacing, and we have paw border width, which in Penpod is called stroke width. Yeah.
Nice, cool. Yeah, stroke and border width is actually something I saw also like in one of the talks of Spotify, like where stroke
Yeah.
is something that is actually more universal on different platforms. So it actually is quite interesting on the naming part of that, to name it stroke. Yeah, cool. Hey Mike, you're also back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Cool.
Yeah, this is cool, right? I think now that the engine is in, I think all the token types are already supported.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're primarily focusing now on the integration. So this is quite interesting because tokens are coming in now. So that means also that there's like quite some interesting architectural things that we need to think about, right? Because now we have these tokens in the input fields and all that. So yeah, we're working on some of that stuff. How we can make that really good. Right now, you could also see the drop down wasn't very pretty. The token name is not fitting in there. Some token names will be long, right? So actually, if you have thoughts about this in the audience today, if you have thoughts about like how you would like to apply tokens, we also know that the left panel that you see here is not ideal. You're going to have large token architectures. You're going to have grouping in there. You're going to have sets in there. So we are fully aware that this is not a scalable solution. This is nice for a few tokens. However, we went down this road because we want to have some early users playing with this very soon. If we promised you access a few weeks ago and you're listening and you didn't get access, that's a funny story, but we deleted something on our infrastructure when we were redoing some of our Kubernetes cluster stuff on Penpod. So, and that was fine. But yeah, we will ask you to sign up again, and we're now really going to give you access. So this is all done now. This actually got fixed today, finally. So we have a staging environment. Yeah, we would love to know soon, how you're using this and how you would like it to be. Marco, what were you going to say?
No, it was just like we have some nice comments. I also want to try this feature of StreamYard that we actually can add this. So Vince actually says he loves this. See,
nice.
see, like we just have to try stuff out, kind of. That is actually really cool. And we also have a question from Onur. Is there a desktop app for Penpod or?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because actually I recently spoke about this with the Penpod team. And I'm gonna have to refresh my memory. Actually, if you maybe can remember better, you can fill me in. But there is no immediate plan for a desktop app. Go ahead.
And I guess that there's something in the works, but it's still not ready. The desktop app for PenPod.
Yeah, so I don't think immediate future, but yeah, it's definitely, of course, something that yeah, people are thinking about. However, because PenPod is open source, you can really spin it up on a Docker on your local computer, and you don't even
Yeah.
need internet, right? So that's the cool thing about it as well. Of course, it's not as simple as click your desktop app, and then of course your data is not stored in the cloud. But yeah, I think there are some interesting potentials here, and especially because you can run stuff local. Actually, there's a very large part of the PenPod user community that are actually running their own instances, right? So it's not just people using the cloud solution. There's a huge adoption on on-prem solutions, or people who are running it on their own home cluster and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, of course, nothing beats a simple desktop app. So I think that should be there eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, but like if we look at like highly sensitive data applications like governments, banks, finance, all the finance departments, right? They need on-premise solutions. Figma for them is a lot of times actually just like a no-go because of the cloud solution.
Yeah, they
So,
still can't use
yeah.
it. Like, yeah. No, absolutely true. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes, thank you very
that's
much, Akshay, for showing that. Actually, it was really cool. Really
Yeah,
looking
awesome.
forward for the next updates. So, yeah, thank you very much. Should we ask if Sam is already ready? No, she's like making that face. Wait, like let me add her, like just to show like that face like of Sam.
Hey, I want to just quickly ask about this question, because the
Yeah.
lack of the desktop app I understand, but does anybody know what does the lack of the quick actions menu mean here? Because I would be interested to know what is that. So if you could maybe write another comment, then I'd love to know. Yeah.
Quick actions. What quick actions would we have? Like, is it the Command P in Figma? Is that the quick
Yeah,
actions?
that's what I was also just thinking. Maybe it's that, right? Like, yeah, because
Yeah.
we love quick actions, right? We have them in the Graph Engine as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
PenPod has quick actions as well. Yeah.
Okay. How do you trigger them?
Using shortcuts. Some are actually very similar to Figma. For example, if you drag and drop.
Can you really
using-
quickly show that?
Yeah. I'm just trying
Oh,
to- yeah.
Yeah.
let's.
Yeah, because I think if that's already there, then that's maybe a feature that should be highlighted a bit more if it's hidden. Not sure if I actually discovered it myself.
Oops. Let's see.
So if you command and 1 second.
Okay, but they don't have like this quick action menu, right, where you can search for something. You just have like, or
Okay, you're
No,
referring
they
to this.
have-
No,
they don't have.
no.
They don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Good.
That's what I thought.
Well,
There are a lot
Yes,
of
that-
Great
short.
feedback, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
that should be an easy contribution, right, of somebody from the community to actually add
Oh,
this.
yeah, that's so cool. You can contribute. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good thing, right? At a product like PenPod, that you are able to actually actively contribute also if you have the skills, I know. But like also like what a lot of people miss on open source project is that they are also like missing designers, right? All the open source topics are always just like we need development, but also like somebody just needs to like line out these features and give some things. So like yeah, that is also very nice to actually contribute also from a design point of view. And I know that GitHub is scary for designers, but it's not that crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so since Sam is still busy building her Figma, is she still? Wait. Let me add her to the stage. You ready?
I think so. I was just going to say about the GitHub for designers being scary. I feel like that's something collectively as a team we could probably help to solve in our industry a little bit, because I also was terrified of GitHub, and I only learned it because back in the day it was the only way to move my tokens to multiple files in Figma. So I just learned the bare minimum just to get things to move. And I remember at one point y'all had just introduced the ability to create folders within the token sets names by adding the slash. And I did that, and then everything broke. And at that point, I was like, I don't do anything anymore. I don't change anything. If it's not broken, we don't fix it. We don't use any new features like that. That was it, because it broke the GitHub and everything was. I was like, whoa, what did I do? So yeah, it was interesting. But I'm a lot more comfortable in it now, so that's great. I feel like we could probably help out.
Yeah, but also like you need to also take it a bit from the like job hunting perspective, right? Like if you contribute on GitHub, it's interesting because like if you apply for a development job, doesn't matter what, but like without GitHub page and like being active, you're probably not going to be shown anywhere, or like you have a very hard time. Let's say it like this. But yeah, if you are active on GitHub also as a designer, that really shows a positive impact for your next job interview, maybe. Yeah, just like.
Yep. I remember the first time I opened up my GitHub profile and I asked my partner, like, what's that number up at the top there? And what's with this green box? And he's like, well, last week you wrote 3,000 lines of code and you removed 200. And the bright green ones are where I was like, I'm not writing code, I'm writing tokens. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, no, I'm writing code that's actually being used in code. I'm actually writing code. And that was the moment where I was like, no. Anyways, the designer in me died a little bit that day, but then I'm now empowered to do it, which is just great. I'm really curious, something that's been coming up in the community a little bit, how we might do like an open source design system project that people could contribute to. And I haven't quite figured out in my head yet how that would work with all the limitations that we have with like Figma paid seats and things. But through the use of tokens, we could probably do that, where you could contribute token sets and find a way to like maybe post the Figma file with your new component in it in our Slack community or something. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I'd be curious what other people think.
Yeah, the first thing that I think when you say it like this is that okay, Figma is one part of it, and that's great. But what would really be the value of an open source design system? I guess a Figma kit would drive great value. Okay, I'm not by no means trying to deny that, but like what I really think about is the tokens part. Definitely, that's where it gets already more interesting because you
isn't that the problem?
A lot more things, like what more?
Yeah, like how many Figma UI kits do we have out in the open, like paid, unpaid, right? Like there's tons of them.
But how many of them have component-specific tokens on them? I can tell you the answer is 0.
Yeah,
The
that's
answer
true.
is 0.
But then
people don't like them still. Most
I
people.
know, because we haven't simplified them enough yet, but we're going to get there, I think. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I think if you think about an open source design system, like how could you solve the hard parts of a design system without ever having to make a design? Right? Because at the end of the day, like, and I know this sounds really bad, but it's a sauce on top of it, right? And there's people who are really good at it. And at the end of the day, it's like taking a really good design language that is applied on UI and then find the logic in it. And then we have to, somehow get it into a system that works, systematic.
Well, I mean, that would be ideal. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say it would be ideal to be able to take it from wherever you built it and move it to wherever you want to go. Like that's the dream. I don't want to be locked into my tool. If Figma disappears tomorrow, well, I don't know. That's a problem for someone else to solve, but I'm happy to, contribute to the ideas, whoever wants to solve it.
Yeah, I think we should, right?
I'm looking at you two over there.
Looking
at
which
you.
one too? Like, yeah. There's actually sorry. I just want speaking about Figma, I just got an update pushed. I actually had the same update, just like when we started the stream. So I guess they're already rolling out stuff.
Wait,
you can.
Did you get an update yesterday?
No, it was a today update.
I got an update yesterday, so maybe I did not get one.
Did you get the SAM benefit?
I don't know. Is that a SAM benefit? They're like, hey, we know this person breaks stuff all the time. Let's send it to her first and see how much she complains on the internet. I don't know what their strategy is.
SAM, the breaker of things. I'm gonna make you a magic card.
My
Every team has one, I heard. So
my running title is Edge Case Queen. So
Nice.
I'll wear that.
Cool.
I'll wear that crown. Okay, I'm gonna try to screen share, but I haven't done it yet on StreamYard, so we'll
It
see.
should be just browser screen share. If you
it.
did it on
Present.
Meets, it should work.
Share screen.
I'm gonna go offline, so you have your stage.
Okay. Looks like you guys can see my screen, which is good. Okay, so I'm gonna show what some of the new things are that are coming in the beta. Looking at the list of people in the chat right now, it looks like some of you, this will be familiar to you, others not so much. And I'm gonna demo today the creation of typography from typography composite tokens into text styles, which we already have today, like this exists. However, there is a way now to do it with variables. So it takes a couple of steps, and some people who are in the beta testing are getting hung up a little bit. So I want to show that. And before I do that, I just want to talk about this idea of how we structure things, because it's kind of important when we're doing these more complex tasks with the plugin. So we have this idea of primitives, and what the plugin is going to do is it's going to take all your primitives and it's going to, from your typography tokens, and it's going to create those as the variables. But this idea of the decision of all of the primitives that make up my text style as a combined thing, entity, a whole decision, still has to be made as a text style in Figma, because as of today, Figma does not support a variable with more than one value. So we still have to create the text styles in a separate action from the variable. So that's the first thing that I want to clarify. And so I'm going to open up the plugin and I'm going to go through a couple of steps. So I already have typography tokens in this file. I'm going to create some themes so I can export them as variables. Then we're going to export the styles. And if everything works the way I want it to, we'll be able to see textiles with variables combined. And so I'm going to open up the beta version of the plugin. And if you haven't seen this before, you're going to get a bit of a surprise. I don't know if you caught that. Okay, so I'm in my plugin and I have this primitive option up here called a scale. This is the fancy math that we were talking about earlier, but I'm using this to create my unit list version, which is going to power my text sizes. I have this typeface for enter because Figma treats the font family and the font weight as a pair. So what I mean by that is enter calls its semi-bold over here, semi with a capital S and a capital B and a space between. But if I just choose a different font family like Merriweather or Satoshi or whatever it is, this word semi-bold will be written differently. And we have to take these exact strings and make sure that they match in order to avoid all sorts of issues. So I always import these as one sort of unit. If whatever you're doing is different, doesn't matter. If it works for you, it's great. But this is how I've got this one set up. I have this idea of brand, and my brand is saying, okay, I have my font family here for heading and body. They're both enter in this file. And then I have the font weights that I'm choosing. And then I have my sizes, which are coming from my scale. And I've got all these other things that will be combined together to make my typography composite tokens. So in, for example, P3, I have, all the things that are mapping back to brand. So you can see that everything is coming in from brand. And I'm going to take a second and I'm just going to create the themes that I need to create. And then I will let anyone else on my team let me know if there's any questions while I'm doing this.
We actually have one question there. Let me add it up. Boom. Absolutely not a silly question, but we have a little channel where you can actually try out like early releases. Sam, you might want to say something about this while you work on that, or should I? take that on because you're super focused.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I get this
Okay.
right in my head. Maybe you can let them know how to find
Yeah,
it.
yeah. There's a beta channel in our Slack community. You can ask to join, and there you will always find our release candidate releases. As said, they are betas releases, right? Back up your tokens. You will get a notification, everything. We are happy if you join. We always love testers for our products. And it's also a way that you can actually help with steer the product into the right direction. Not only can you use that one, but also like we have our feature base. And in feature base, you can also like add your requests kind of or your wishes and we can upvote them. So yeah, that's also a great place to actually like line out your ideas that you would love to see in the plugin in the future. That would help to optimize your workflow.
Nice. Oh, Esther's going to help you guys out with getting the access to the beta, which is awesome. Okay.
I'm pretty sure Esther can't post, but I'll try.
Oh. Darn. Okay, I will add the link when I'm... Oh, yeah, there we go. It's in the chat. Awesome.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so yes, it is a development plugin install. And what that means is when you hit a bug, because if we didn't have bugs, it wouldn't be in beta anymore, you can just flip back over to opening the production version of the plugin and you can bounce back and forth. So you are safe to explore, but always do it in a safe environment with things that are not dependent on, CI/CD pipelines and all that good stuff. So okay, I have my theme set up. And so the way that I've done this, because the theming is pretty important, and there's also a bit of a UI change to themes. So I think it's cool to show it off a little bit. So in my primitives, I've got that scale that I built that's got all the fancy math in it. And I have the typeface enter. So if I had other typefaces in there, I would add it here as well in the primitives. So the things that are my options to choose from. And then, I don't want to do that. I want to go back and I want to explore my brand set, which for me is Token Studio. And I have my brand set enabled, but I need to tell the plugin to reference the typeface enter and the scale because these are dependencies. And up until this release, when you used reference only, which used to be called set as source in the past, sometimes variables would break a little bit. And so we were recommending not to use them. But the engineering team has done a great job to actually make these very useful for lots of reasons now. So feel free to go ahead and use them. And I'm going to go back now to my typography. And I've got the typography enabled. And now I'm just referencing brand. So I've got these three set up. And you'll notice that I have another token set here called typography number, which I didn't include in anything. And I'm going to show you what's happening with that in a second here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my themes. So I've got my primitives. I've got my one brand of Token Studio. And I've got my typography. I'm going to do a quick scan, make sure nothing is broken. I'm all good to go. And so now I'm going to export to Figma. And remember, I've got to do this in 2 steps. I have to send my variables first, and then I have to create the styles, which are going to include the variables. So how do we do that? I'm going to go to the styles and variables menu, which has changed. And I'm going to go to export styles and variables. So we've gotten rid of some options that were there before. So there's no more sync and all the other things that were a bit confusing. Everything's just tied into one sort of action now. We have this new menu. And what the new menu does is it allows you to choose which variables you want to create and which styles you want to create. And then we've got some settings here. And so I'm not going to talk about all of them right now. I'm just going to turn them all off. And I'm going to create just the variables, which, if you'll recall, for typography, and I actually added it here for reference, we have string variables and we have number variables. So your font family and font weight, which were those exact words and the way that they're typed, are going to be string variables, and things like font size and line height and all that other stuff are going to be written as number variables. So I'm going to turn on string and number. I'm going to turn off my styles for right now. And these can all be off. I don't want to ignore the first name. I don't want to prefix. These settings used to be actually on the settings page. We've moved them here because it's relevant to the same task. Create styles with variable references. We're going to use this in step 2. And then we don't need to worry about these for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit confirm.
Short question. Oh, you pressed. Why did you uncheck the styles for now? Can you give what was the reasoning?
Yeah, so we have to do this in like a 2-step action. So the plugin has to create the variables in order for it to be referenced within a style. So if we do them both at the same time, it will create the typography styles and the variables, but they won't be connected, and you'll have to run the action again in order for the plugin to connect the two.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to
You're
clarify.
welcome. And so when you open up that menu, I hit confirm, and now I'm at the second step. If you were like, oh, I got to go back, it's down here at the bottom. So you can just hit that options button. It shows back up. We've added some decent labels, still room for improvement on all the content, of course, but at least you know where you are. I'm in export to Figma under options, so I can confirm now. And now this is also new. You get to choose which themes you want to create. And if you're not a pro user, we've also added the ability to export as token sets. TBD on how that works and all that stuff, because I still have to do the final docs on it, but that's for next office hours, perhaps. And so instead of select all, I'm going to only create my primitives and my brand. In theory, I could also do this one because there's nothing in there to write as a variable. It wouldn't matter, but just for the sake of it, I'm just going to only create the primitives and the brands. And remember, I've now opted for variables only. I'm going to hit export to Figma, and I get the notification that variables have been created. There was a bug where we were not giving the accurate count. That's been fixed now, which is great. I'm just going to close out of this for a second. And you can see now in my primitives, for example, I have font family, font weight, scale. I've got all these things. Everything is there. It's good. In brand, I have the references to the primitives, which are being referenced here. So these are all here now. That's cool. Primitives are done. So step one, done. Now I want to do step two, which is creating the typography style. So I'm going to go back into the plugin. Oh, I don't know if you guys saw that sneaky little thing there at the beginning. What do you think? I'm going to go to styles and variables again. I'm going to export again, but I'm going to change now to styles. Now I don't need to export again because these are already there. And now if you'll remember, I'm going to go through the options. I want to create a style with a variable reference, right? Because if I don't have this selected, it's just going to create the styles, but they won't be connected. And if you do that and you make a mistake and you're like, I forgot that little pesky setting, you can open it back up, click the setting and do it again, and it will map it for you. Or if you already have typography styles created and now you want to export your variables and then you want to map them, you can do this to connect them, which is cool. So anyways, I'm going to click this here and hit confirm. And I'm going to choose my typography and I'm going to export to Figma. And now if I open this up, and I hit, for example, P1, and I go and look at my text style, I can see that it's mapped to my font family and my font weight, and it's got squares on it, which means it's coming from variables. Same with my font size, which is so cool. Now, what you're going to notice is it's skipped my line height and my letter spacing. Well, why did it skip those? Because I'm using percentage values in the plugin because I want to have responsive design, which is not supported yet in variables. Who knows what's going to happen at config. And so what the plugin does is it still creates the variables. Like if I go into brand and I look for my line heights, still creates the variables. But all we can do is we just like strip out that percentage value there. And so you just end up with this like 1.4, and then it's going to add a line height of 1.4, and Figma will think that we're talking about pixels, which is not exactly what I wanted. So instead, what the plugin does is it just skips mapping that variable and leaves the percentage. So if your typography tokens are already built using percentages to support responsive design, nothing is going to break for you. So that's cool. Now, if you want to do to prove that it is working, which is why I had that other token set created there, which is this typography number one. So what I did was you can see here that I have line height set to 1.5, which is going to be a tiny little pixel value. And so I would, change that to something more reasonable. So, I would change everything in here, and then I would do the whole thing over again, and then it would map it to the whole number and do everything like we wanted it to. But if you look at my typography over here, it's actually showing a percentage, 120%, which is what I want. I don't want to have, 1.4 pixels or whatever it ends up being. So that's the demo on creating textiles, which are combined to variables. And to recap, it's important that you run the action for variables first, and then you run the action for styles to connect them. If you forget to use that pesky setting, you can go back in and do it again, and everything will map for you. And you got to see some of the new features, which is we have a new export menu, and we have a new themes menu, and we have all this new functionality baked in, which is really cool. If you are testing the new beta for the first time, you're going to want to go to the roadmap in FeatureBase to check out all the new things and learn about them and how they're working before you go in and test these new features. For example, one that was a total pleasant surprise to me this morning was we can now create color tokens, which are gradients, which are mapped to variables, but I haven't had a chance to test it yet. So next office hours, I'll be sure to demo that. All right, I'm going to stop sharing, and you can let me know what questions we have, if any.
Ooh, yeah. Actually, thanks for that demo. It was actually pretty amazing to see that it all works. Yeah, also looking forward to gradients. Yeah, we are actually like talking the graph engine, Andrew and me, about like some meshed gradients, right? Where we have like 3-dimensional gradients, how this actually works, and like all of that, how we can bring this to the graph engine in the future. Like some more creative gradients.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was going to come because I saw the GitHub spike, which is like, hey, engineering, go see if this is possible. And then 2 days later, it was in the plugin. So our engineering team is they're on it right now, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about gradients. I'm excited about this ability to choose what I want to export. As a little sneak preview, the reason why this is so cool that you can choose what you want to export is because we are now also supporting this idea of non-local files that stay connected. So remember, I can have my primitives published in file 1. I can have all my decision tokens in file 2. I can have my component library in file 3. And the coolest thing about that one is like, if I don't publish my component tokens at all, or even have them in that component library, it will show me my decision tokens. So it'll say, brand color primary as opposed to button color background. But we can still see the component specific token. So that is really cool. I'm excited to demo that once everything is all fixed on the beta.
Yeah, I think that's been a very long-standing request actually from before to apply component tokens and have only decision or semantic tokens applied. So that's really cool that's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great because product designers will end up learning how things are built. So as design systems creators, we've got this like content web in our head of all these decisions we've made, which the graph engine solves because we're documenting those. But you hand these things over like a button over to a product designer and they're like, well, what does this mean to me? What color is that? And so when we remove that layer, which they don't care about so much, and save that for engineers and systems folks, then they get to see, oh, okay, well, these buttons are using the brand color in its stronger emphasis, and the foreground has a different token, and they start to learn about these decisions because they're seeing them every time they pull them into their files, which I think is going to be a really cool move moving forward about like how we're using our decisions in a way that is like kind of unintentional, but a nice bonus of this new feature that we're releasing. So,
yeah, what I keep wondering though is that I think it will be a never solved debate that should a design system ever become so good that you can almost create products without really needing to think about design in that sense, right? And that you're really focused on creating an experience. But will we reach a point where the rules and the patterns and the things are so good that we can really
Yeah,
Sorry?
we will always need like new patterns and everything, right? Maybe the component level
I'm not
is
rejecting that, but that is
Yeah.
systems design, right? Or also
Yeah.
can also be product design.
Product
But then
design,
you
yeah.
need a new pattern, right? Okay, I need a new pattern. But like, I'm wondering, will we reach a point where we will describe, let's say, once the design system is mature, we have our surface logic worked out, we have worked out how components work on top of surfaces, we have worked out how we work with density and all those kind of things, right? Now, you have so many dimensions in your system. So as a product designer, let's say if your focus is creating a really good experience, to what extent then do you want to be bothered about like, okay, we have to deal with density, we have all these different surfaces, I have all these different colors that components can be, right? Or do we want to describe that like you said, a low emphasis or a medium emphasis or a high emphasis, right? A call to action kind of an emphasis. And do we have these different descriptions, but should I even be bothered then what they are? Or am I almost able now to go back to like kind of, you know, a wireframe kind of design where I semantically describe how all these elements should work, and does the system fill it in for me, and does it automatically sort out my dark mode and maybe my dim mode and accessibility mode, right? Because to what extent do the tokens make sense after a point? There's all these layers of complexity, and we're trying very hard to avoid it. I think I've kind of been seeing this curve, like people going all in on design tokens, component tokens, dimensions. But that was the first time, or like, you know, we were ambitious and then we ran into problems, and now we're trying to do our project with 500 or less tokens. It's a KPI. Maybe that said, like, you know, okay, we want to reduce the complexity, but that's actually not what we want. What we want is we want flexibility, and we want to be able to do a lot of things. But I simply think like we're really struggling. We don't have the tooling to tie this together elegantly, where it becomes manageable again, right? And so I don't think it's so much a matter of like, you know, which tokens to be exposed. It's really just about, I think, still being very early stage, right? Of how do we actually deal with this overwhelming amount of information that we somehow need to share and keep connected. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to just pull components in and not think about, because, you know, designers are usually okay to think about a wireframe, idea of a concept, just put my boxes in the right order, see if I like it. Then I want to go, okay, what does this look like for brand A? What does that look like in my high contrast color mode? And what if I want to show brand A a version where there's, you know, more negative space and it's more roomy versus like, okay, here it's super compact. And I just want to flip those switches and see that. And I think that that's like, you know, the super powerful thing where I don't have to think about any of the decisions that went into that. Someone else did it for me, or, you know, a graph engine did it for me, or whatever it is. And I can just put my Lego pieces where I want them to be and then go, oh, I want my castle to be in the purple mode that matches Marco's, you know, cave. Or I want a botanical themed, you know, version. I can just flip the switch and have that, you know, look that way. And I think that would be so cool to be able to do that, because I routinely make a wireframe theme in my tokens as like a little pro tip if you haven't thought about this before. So you would just change all your colors to some like electric ugly blue and black and white, and change all your border radii tokens to square, and just do everything so it kind of looks a bit you could even change your typeface to something funny. Roni's in the chat, and he has a really great Figma community file for wireframing, which is awesome. And it allows you to change, like, do you want to see a squiggle, or you want to see Comic Sans, or some other version, and all these different things. Like, what level of fidelity do you want your wireframe to be? And I think that that's pretty cool. I can do that with tokens now, which is great. I don't have to think about the styling and then add it in later, you know, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, also like he just dropped the message of like material design is beautiful, like that, but like how hard it is to use. Material design is really interesting to use if your brand is very flexible. Let's say it like this. you need to be able to really bend your brand into the realms of material. Material is not going to bend around your brand. That's one of the big things. Also, I think like Google is still not using material for all the products because it's made for like native devices and everything, right? It like just doesn't work for large desktop applications. Like, yeah, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's meant to map back to the code base that engineers use when they're building native apps. So the tokens are already there, the components all match, all that sort of stuff. So you do a mock-up with the token values and you export those to your engineers, and they basically do a similar thing, drag and drop, and the code's kind of there, and then they just pump in the value of the tokens, and it's all meant to be very... I'm simplifying it a lot if you're an Android engineer. I'm not trying to devalue what you do. It's important, but that's the purpose of what they're doing. It's not meant for like building from scratch sort of a thing for the most part. Yeah.
Cool. So should we dive into the last topic of the day?
Let's do it.
Why not? Okay. Should we bring our last guest on stage?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, are you ready? Give me a thumbs up if I can add you. Woohoo.
Mike, maybe you want to give Andrew a little intro for folks who haven't met Andrew yet.
That's Andrew. wait. Damn. here.
Yeah,
Wrong way. See, like it's not that easy.
not that easy. Oh yeah. Oh, well, why not? Yeah. Did you ask if I want to give an intro?
Yeah.
Intro? Oh, sorry. I was wondering why is it so quiet? Like, you know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Andrew is one of
It's
our
Andrew.
very brilliant engineers who is the big brain behind this really amazing graph engine. So and Andrew, Marco, and I have been working together really closely on some of the innovation pieces that are going to come out this year. Graph Engine is one of the first steps in that direction. So maybe we'll talk a bit about the Graph Engine and the journey with Andrew as well today. So I don't know if you want to tell something more about yourself, Andrew.
I don't think so. I think that's mainly it.
Okay.
Cool. But Sam has her awesome introduction questions, and you were not there in the first round. So, like Sam.
Okay, Andrew, you've got some catching up to do, and I'm sorry for everyone in the chat who didn't have lunch after that. We talked about this the first time around. What is the taco that you love to order when you have the choice of endless possibilities?
Oh, that's a good question.
Are there tacos in South Africa? Like, do you get good Mexican food?
No, I would say we probably get the most bland interpretation of what a taco is. So it's very, very difficult. I'm pretty much getting knockoff tacos. I probably don't even know what a really good one tastes like, to be honest.
Nice. So
It's probably the same for Akshay, right? He was like, I ate it once and like, no, that's not my thing.
Yeah, for us, like if you say a nacho in South Africa is like a Dorito. Like we don't
Oh, that makes me sad for anyone who's not familiar. In my mind, I'm imagining a plate of tortilla chips, which are crispy, covered in all sorts of toppings, including cheese and vegetables, and it gets baked in the oven so the cheese melts and all the layers, and you got to pull it apart, and then you got to dunk it in salsa or guacamole or whatever it is that you want. So a Dorito, that's a fire starter in my world.
Yeah, so Andrew, fair warning, when you join our stream, eat first. Otherwise you're going to be hungry for 2 hours and not be able to leave.
Okay, question 2. The purpose is for everyone to get to know you a little bit. Tell me about something that you want to learn or that you're trying to learn currently. And knowing who you are as a human, I can't wait to hear your answer.
I can give you an incredibly specific thing that I'm trying to learn at the moment.
Yes, please.
That's probably going to be interesting only to me and almost no one else.
Right.
If you know anything about like procedural generation, there's a concept called L systems. The idea is it's a grammar that you can write with a series of rules that then does some kind of transformation. And you can do that. You can use it to do like some very interesting things. One of them, namely, is you can generate like trees and a few other like kind of very naturalistic things. It does have one major flaw, and that major flaw is it's kind of like a big linear array of text that you do transformations on, which is kind of cool, but I think it's limiting. There has been a paper that I've been trying to read for ages, called a graph transformation grammar. And actually it was shown in a GDC talk ages ago, where he spoke about procedural dungeon generation. And the idea was you kind of put these arbitrary blobs around and you assign a value to them. And then you define a series of rules that like transforms them. So you would say something like, I've kind of got big room A here and big room B here. And then what it does is it iteratively goes through its rules over and over again, expanding. So it goes, okay, well, I always know that between two big rooms, I put a corridor. And then on the next round, it goes, okay, well, if there's a big room and a corridor, I have a 20% chance to maybe generate a treasure room off on the side. And then it goes, well, if there's a treasure room near 2 big rooms, then I make a wall that you can like break through to get into it. Like, it kind of like keeps iterating over and over again. The original one was just dungeon generation. But a really, really interesting example for it that actually comes through is procedural quest generation in games. Because all quests in games, there's pretty much only 7 types of quests. The idea is normally something like go and get item, kill X person, go to a place. They're all just this. There's no other real difference in them. But they're the basic building fundamentals. And the idea is you can make production rules that start out with something like choose a quest type. This is the first one. Now make it an arbitrarily interesting quest. Because for most of us, when humans play games for quests, if it's something incredibly basic, like go to the forest and kill 1,000 boars, that's incredibly boring. But if you have it that there's a series of complex steps along the way and it gives you options on how to do it, you immediately feel it's more interesting. And you can kind of look, when they did this kind of study, I think that it was Oblivion, the game Oblivion. Nearly everyone enjoys like the Dark Brotherhood quest and stuff like that because the possibility space that you can do to kind of solve it is incredibly high. And that was because it was written by hand. But you should be able to then generate Radiant quests with arbitrarily high amounts of complexity, which should make it very interesting. Anyway, probably
Wow. I
love
learned
that.
so much right there. As you were talking and telling this visualization of it, I was imagining like the choose your own adventure books that I used to read when I was little and trying to get into. I was like, oh, I get like the check mark for a chapter book, but I'm only reading half. Like that was my that was my motivation. But I always found it so interesting that I would choose one series of pathways and then I'm like, oh, I want to go back and choose another one and see what happens in the story. So as you were telling it, that's what I was imagining. So it's kind of like the programmatic way to do that with every possible outcome and every possible combination. You want to learn how to build that sort of logic and use this. Is that that's what you're learning,
Yes.
right? Is like how to build it. Cool.
And where would we use this now, Sam?
Craft engine.
Yeah, but no, for what? What is the
Well,
outcome?
I mean, what isn't the outcome? So you just took away all the decisions that I have to make, right? Because they would be in the program and I wouldn't have to think about them so much. So like
No.
if you no?
But
If
then
you,
don't take away all the decisions. You still make decisions, right? You decide which room you go, which way you take. Yeah.
sure.
Here's actually an interesting thing. The one that I've just told you is an example of like additive. You're adding complexity from some really basic rules. The graph grammar itself could actually be used in the exact opposite, which is if you allow it to detect complicated things and then you show it a rule production to then simplify it. The idea is you give it like complicated pipelines, or in our case, if you have a graph with loads of nodes, and then you should be able to ask it like, hey, can I go and solve and produce the complexity of this by removing a series of steps? That's a really like immediate example for it. As a random aside, because you mentioned it, there's a book series called the Lone Wolf book series, which is exactly what you described with the Choose Your Own Adventure, but you actually play it out over multiple books. So every single book is its own kind of adventure. You go on it, and then you keep stuff. So I think it's like 14 books in total, and items that you got in like the second book are still usable like many books later, and you can kind of keep it all. It's really cool.
Oh,
Anyway.
that's really cool. It reminds me, my partner just brought home this board game and we were going to play it before I left, and I open it up and I start reading the rules and I'm like, I have to destroy this board game as we play it. What is happening here? I don't understand. It's a game called Pandemic, if anyone's heard of it or knows about it, but I was like, okay, so I have to literally destroy the game as I go, and then that's it, and then you got to buy the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So anyways, we're waiting until his kids come to visit so we can do this adventure together. They're all very excited about this idea that they get to destroy a board game, and I'm mortified about the fact. I'm like, how could we do it and save it? He's like, no, you rip it up when they say you rip it up, you put the stickers on where you say it, put the stickers on. Like, you're not trying to save the game, Sam. We're going to destroy it as we go. Stressful.
So
There's no-
it's a
there's no
really
undo
good,
for that.
marketing system. You constantly
Right.
have to keep buying new versions of it over and over again.
We should do this for the graph engine too. It like automatically destroys the last node when you're like hitting the end.
Oh,
You have to
But
start
it's a
from
bit like the stream we had for the last couple of days, right?
yeah.
that's like I know a lot of people are resistant to using Arc browser because of the automatic closing of all the tabs on it. They're like, whoa, I can't even go there. I mean, I know you can change the setting, but there are people who are like, fundamentally, this is not good for my brain. So
Fundamentally, it's good for your browser or for your like system usage. I would say like because I know my Chrome like tab bar and I switched to Arc, and yeah, like a day is about like 100 tabs, right? Like with closing. I know Andrew's tab bar because he is not using Arc yet. So
Oh, yeah,
in
But
Chrome,
you're not only one of my tab bars. Like,
you can group them now in Chrome. You can create little folders of your tabs. So they're
yeah, that
little-
doesn't change that they get like just makes it more, right? Like that's the only thing that it does. It gives me more.
it's procrastination. Like,
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, Andrew, it was nice to like learn a little bit about what you're learning about. So thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the graph engine a bit, since we have Andrew here and Mike, right? Mike, you want to do the intro to the beta, and then I'll make you a bit bigger.
how do you do that?
Like I move this, and then I replace Sam with you, and then you're bigger.
Oh, okay. Make the screen bigger.
And then I can move Sam there, and like I can move like. So you want to share something, or you want to just talk?
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to share my screen and then just
yeah.
go from there.
That's
Let's
good.
see how that goes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I guess we can see my screen at least.
Yeah.
Why is it not moving? Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
All right. So yeah, so we're looking at the latest beta release of the Graph Engine, and yeah, there's a couple of new things in there. For those of you who have not seen the Graph Engine before or not used it, let me quickly run over the basics.
Mike, do me one favor, like
Yeah.
which you always request from me.
Oh, hey, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, that should do the trick. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the left here we have a panel where we can see all the categories and all the different types of nodes that we have. And these nodes you can drag them on the canvas, and I'll get into these in a little bit. Below that we see a legend. So whenever I drag a node on the canvas, you can see these little icons over here with the colors. Those are the ports, and those ports have types. And it can be a color or a curve or a string. It can be all kinds of things, but it's one of these, and that's what we call the type or the typing. Yeah, then on the right side, we have the inputs and output panels, and I'll get into that in a bit. There's a lot of other stuff in here, but I'm not going to go so deep into it, but there's a lot of fun things in here. But one of the cool things is that we now have also some examples in here. So I'm just going to load color scale example. So yeah, we've also updated the UI a bit. We're moving away from the blue color on the outside here. There's still some design migration in progress, but I'm going to go through a more neutral color palette for the graph. We've also brought in more contrast. We have made the lines, the connections much more clear and visible. And a lot of other things. We've brought in some of these previews back in that were gone for a while since V1. Yeah, and a lot of other cool things. And we've updated the color palette, so all the types have their own unique colors now. So yeah, I think that's all really helping to make it a lot easier to see. We have also we have Shift K. We have a nice menu in here.
Mike, can you please zoom a bit more that we can see?
Oh yeah,
It's like,
zoom a bit more. Okay, is this
Yeah.
okay?
I think should be fine only on the nodes. You can also zoom in when you talk about one. I think that it's a bit
okay.
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go with a preview node here. Oh, where is it? Oh no, scale. Color scale. So I make a color scale preview. You have these nice previews now over here. So over here in the node, I'm generating a color scale from a color, and I can drag in these preview nodes, and I can see the color scale that I have created over here. On the right side panel, we have our inputs and outputs. So a node can have inputs and outputs. In this color scale node, for example, you see there's an input, which is a color, this one, and it's coming from this node. And I have 3 steps up and down. I'm not showing these over here, but these are also actually ports. I could drag other values in there. And the output over here is an array of colors, and I can visualize that over here to see the output of it. So when I change things, I have to change it over here on this node. So now you can see when I change the U over here, you can see that it's changing in real time. You can also see the dotted lines now if you observe over here. So you can actually see how the graph is executing in real time. It will only be dotted lines for nodes that are actually re-executing. So you can see what part of your graph is working and what part is not. But yeah, I think this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have some other examples in here as well. So just quickly want to show that, for example, our type scale. So you can see this graph over here. Here we're creating type scales using different types of mathematics nodes like arithmetic series or geometric series, harmonic series. I won't go into the depth of them now, but you can see we basically take a series, we run over that series using our subgraphs, and then we generate a type scale. And you can see the preview nodes over here. It quickly visualizes it in your graph. But you also can see over here that there's tokens coming out, and these tokens, this is the sizes for your type scale, for example. So I think there's things are becoming a bit more polished at this stage, and we're trying really to make it a lot more intuitive and friendly. Like we always say, all feedback is really welcome. And maybe we can look at some other stuff now. I'm just going to stop sharing for a bit and come back. And I don't know if you had some topics you wanted to discuss today, Marco, or if anybody has any questions. Also happy to.
So first of all, we're trying to make it a bit friendlier for designers to understand. And we know designers are visual, so that's why we started adding the preview notes, right? Please let us know what previews you want to see. We have a few in there. So one of them is, for example, just a simple color swatch. You visualize one color. We have a color compare. We just have 2 colors side by side. We have the color scale. We're also gonna add soon one that is actually just a color palette. So if you really run through have a full palette of colors, it will also visualize this for you. We have another one that's just a number. So sometimes you do a lot of equations, right? And you have big graph, and you just want to see a number once big that this visualizes. And then we also have the math expression. So that's actually really nice. So let me actually start sharing here that we actually see something from that.
Cool.
And I want my entire screen for you. So I will also zoom in for everybody. So let me just adjust a bit the interface on that zoom level, but that still looks fine, right? So we talked about a color swatch. We have them here on the preview. You can see color compare, color scale, color swatch. A number is just a number, right? It just visualizes a number with a given precision. So you can just say, hey, okay, show me a number of an equation, and this outputs like this. And then we also have the math expression, which is actually quite nice. So we have a new node in the math actually, which helps us to make math equations a lot simpler, and you don't need to pull too many nodes in. So what you actually have is evaluate math, and this node allows us to write a math formula. So let's say we want to have the expression that is actually A plus B divided by C. Right, let's spread it out. A simple one. Now we can actually add the inputs. All of them are numbers, A, B, C. And we could give them values. So let's say 4, 9, 3 to get a expression. Andrew, I can mute you, right? Or who's Mike talking? Who's the one who has the hacky keyboard here?
Not me.
So then you're going to enable the expression output here, because normally we don't want the expression, the output. But now I can actually connect this to my math expression. Oops, and I don't know why the edge is not visible. And you get a nice visualization of the math formula, right? So you can also have more complex equations here that actually are visualized then in a nice way that you see this. So if you're working on some complex stuff, this is quite nice to visualize the expression that you're working with. Don't know why this edge is gone, but I'll figure it out. It's always good to find these bugs. So yeah, as we said, that's a beta release. Like we will encounter bugs. So yeah, then we have a curve that's also very new. And in here you have a curve, for example, sample curve, right? And if we have a curve, we can actually like set points and everything. We're working on that a bit, like how we can do this, but this is very nice for either type scale, where you can say, hey, I adjust my line height by a specific Bezier curve that actually like on the smaller fonts, I need a bigger line height compared to my headlines where I actually want like a line height that is close to 100%, right? So all of these things, and like then you can nicely control this through the curve and say like, okay, hey, it actually starts out strong and then it goes flat kind of. So stuff like this. And these can also be used for color generation, where we can do saturation curves, lightness curves, right? Even hue shifts, we can use them for all of that. So Android is a nice example in here, which was built by a developer because he used RGB for the like curves, so you get really funny colors out. But we're working on an HSL version that that actually works. But you can see, like by changing our curve on top here, we can actually change how the color.
And you can
outputs.
see the lines now. You can see that only one of the parts of the graph is.
Yeah, I don't know if that is actually visible on the stream. I mean, like even maybe zoom in a bit more, like it could be. Yeah, now you can see actually if I change something, you can see
where all it's
when the graph is executing. Yeah, you have a visualization of that. Cool. So that's there. And then what else do we have? Let me just go there through that. So we also have some new nodes, which are, for example, we have the Leonardo color nodes. And give me a second.
Bless you.
Thank you. I hope I saved you everybody's ears.
You did.
Just saw this little meme of like a dead sneeze, right? The full house exploding. Yeah. So we have Leonardo color and Leonardo theme nodes now to let you create a Leonardo color scale. So that's also there, which you can play with. I always love to drag stuff in and just show you how stuff works. Then we have the contrasting alpha, which is something interesting. So we have a contrasting alpha node. The name is still not fine. We're working on it. Actually, what this node does, it's a quite interesting concept, right? So we sometimes just want this subtle color that still has sufficient contrast, right, to our background. And this actually does a Boolean search, similar to what Leonardo does on finding a color. But you can define, hey, I have my white background and my black foreground, and I want that gray tone that just hits the threshold to give me this muted, subtle, like font color. And what this node does, it just searches and gives you like until it goes close to like that contrast ratio, and then it gives you the color. This is a very dangerous node because it does a recursive operation. And if I want to make Andrew mad, I just write a very big number here and probably crash my system. So Andrew is already not happy about that. No, but like so we can actually add a precision here, like to run the like Boolean search 10 times, then you get closer to your threshold. Normally on a contrast, it just doesn't matter that much, right? You can also say it just 3 times, but that's a bit tricky. So 5 times is where I found like a quite sweet spot. Yeah, Sam?
Why do I need to do recursive, meaning recurring over and over and over 5 times? Why do you have to have that number? What is the benefit of it?
So we want to hit a specific contrast ratio by reducing the alpha. I can't tell it an alpha and a color and to give me the contrast. So I can't say like, give me the alpha for that directly, or at least I haven't found the math for that yet.
Yeah, so what it's doing, right? So we're going under the assumption that there is an alpha color on a plain color, and we're going to mix them until we find sufficient contrast. So there's no way really to find out than to just try and then reduce the error until you are close, right? So basically reducing the error in every step of precision until it finds so you come closer and closer to its approximation So you would have to go almost infinitely far probably to actually hit 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
As you
this
can
is
see, right?
right.
Yeah.
because it's dynamic completely, right? So you
so in a tool like Leonardo, for example, it's doing the same thing, but I'm not having to set the 5 scans. It just might have a default of 5, and then
Exactly.
it's showing me a number
Yeah,
under
I
the
think
hood.
Leonardo does it on 8 times or 10 times per color. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just giving more granular precision for the folks who know how to go in and like
Yeah.
do this thing.
yeah. But
We
we
will
try
put a
to do is
limiter on
give
that.
sensible defaults and kind of take
Yeah.
it from there. I think that's what we need to do. So we don't want to really impose as much as possible how we do it. But yeah.
So if you were working with a particularly challenging color like lime green on white or yellow in any capacity, you could adjust the precision level to be a bit higher, like a higher number would give you more scans to try to find the right value, or
Wouldn't change a lot. It just means how close you are to the target contrast you want. It just means like either you're like, so this is using now APCA, right? So 3.0, and we want 60. It's a bit more tricky, right? 60 is quite in the middle, so the division works quite well. So if I say, hey, but I only want 15, a contrast of 15, you're a bit further off that target because now it has a larger scale. It needs to divide all the time. So you can imagine like right where it goes. It's always like, take this, divide it, look where I am. Take it, divide it, look where I am. Take it, divide it, look where I am. But it's like the lower the value, the bigger the range it needs to check on and to give you that right.
okay, so
But-
this is like
yeah.
peeling back a layer under the hood and giving you more granular control, but in the future it'll probably just be like a drag and drop and it'll work most of the time similar to the way that like Leonardo does this work for me and I don't have to think about it.
It just
Yeah,
works out of
the
the
way
box.
I-
You don't need to change the precision really,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But let's imagine like what you said, right? We have a marigold background, kind of. Somewhere here in this, like, right? This is a marigold background. And I want a stroke on top of this color, right? And we say, hey, our starting point is actually white, or let's not make it white, but a bit of a tinted color that might be our like stop, right? That we have. And now it's reducing the alpha until it goes to that threshold of contrast. And that is actually like, so on marigold, this is actually like a flattened color now. So you can use the alpha value and like create a HSL color with or like RGB color with that alpha to give you that contrast. Or you can just also use the flattened color, which just lets you have a hard value that like is unchangeable, right? Also like, so this is quite helpful for some platforms maybe, or when you just want this always to work. By that you have the hard value.
The need of
the alpha.
using alpha.
Yeah. But like back in the day, this is how you used to create, for example, a grayscale that had a tint of your brand color, and you would create a transparency of some value with your like blue at 15% and blue at 30 and blue at 60, and you would lay it over top and then tweak the percentages and see which one you liked better, and then you would try that across your whole scale and do it that way. So this is the same thing, but instead of using the color picker to do my flattened color, it's calculating that for me, and now it's also giving me the value of that opacity level, which in this case would be 84.
Yeah, 84%, yeah.
Cool. That's so cool. I'm thinking about my past life and how much time I spent doing that shit.
Exactly.
And you can run this on an array, right? Like, yeah, what we will do is actually there will be a limiter on the precision because we don't want you to kill your system, which is very easy when you run this on an array map, like 50 times. Not that helpful, right? Also, if we look at like contrast precisions in WCAG 3.0, so APCA, it's like 100 lambda of 106 that is actually there. And like if you're like let's say 3 plus minus 3 in that range, you're fine. Also, what this node does, it never goes under the value you specify. It always stays above. So as you can see, like even if I define 45, it will not hit this, right, with these colors. So let's say 30. That's also one interesting thing. If it doesn't hit the alpha, kind of like it gives you the full color, the full foreground, because it is not able to reduce the foreground to an alpha value that it can't reduce the transparency.
This is so cool. So if I wanted to create a perceptually uniform set of accent colors for a very flexible app experience that needed, I don't know, 70 different colors, maybe you're doing some data heavy thing and you need lots of tags or something, you can
Yeah.
use this node and just replicate it across all your different base colors, and then it would give you this perceptually uniform collection of multiple palettes.
Exactly. If you run this through the array map, you can always do this. Like you'd say, okay, let's take that palette color always against my background, which I defined, which Leonardo kind of similar does, right? Where it takes the contrast and defines the colors by the contrast. We can also do this with this now. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, Leonardo is good, but it's not perfect. Like as you and I,
No, by
experienced
far
when
not,
we
right,
were
like
trying
there's-
there's some colors where it says that it's, you know, the contrast ratio is even, but if you're looking
Yeah.
at hot pink and teal and gray, and they all like they don't actually communicate the same way to the eye. So this is very exciting.
That's the same. Like if we now change actually to 2.1, right? Like we wouldn't put 30 because 2.1 stops at what value? Do you know? What's the maximum contrast on 2.1? 21.
No, all I know is half the time when I look at a color combination and I'm like, this is not accessible. And the designer says, but I tested it, and I tested on WCAG 2.0 and it passes, but then you put it on APCA and it, or whatever the acronym
Yeah.
is, I'm going to mess it up and it doesn't pass. And I'm
Completely,
like,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, so-
especially error states, right? So you have like red on grays. This I've run into this a lot where you have like a red on gray and it will pass
Yeah.
2.0, but it won't pass with perceptual. So it's really,
Yeah.
I'm excited for these tools.
Exactly. Actually, like as I don't have the input color here, which would be nice to connect. Luckily, it doesn't work. Let me just set that background color to the same color. Whoops. That is actually. Oh, interesting. Was that local? Oh, okay, good. Interesting bug. I just typed hash into our color picker.
Can we have
Well-
a sound effect button on demand so that every
Yeah,
time
we
you guys come up
def-
with a bug, something happens and I push the button on the Stream Deck and it's just like,
What means we come up with a bug? You just said you're the queen of what was it? Like
edge case queen.
Edge case queen. Like
Queen.
you
Yeah,
need
that's-
that button, not us.
But that's why I'm not using your tool yet. Andrew doesn't want my level of bug reporting, trust.
we have some into space. What is this doing? Wait. We can have some. We can add music. So okay, let's add our contrasting alpha again. No, but if we have like a navy here, right? Some navy blue color, and then we add our marigold on top because we are just madmen and we want like that contrasting color on top. The thing, and we go to 2.1, and we say we want the contrast of 1.5, and we actually get like an alpha of 25 on that color. And now if we actually have our colors, watch, gonna add that color here. Boom. Oh, what do we end up with if we combine these two colors, huh? So yeah, that's quite interesting to do. And then you get like, okay, this would be like the combination. Probably you're not gonna mix it like this, but it also is an option, right? To say like, hey, this is actually how I would stack my colors, and then I could dynamically calculate from that color a new color scale to work from.
So you would, I now have this color swatch and I love this new eggplant purple color. And I'm like, okay, now I want a whole range. You
Yeah.
would just take that and then do it from there. So this then would become like a module that you would expand out.
Yeah, let's say 4 down, 5 up normally, right? Then we can have our preview. Just gonna drag them in that you kind of know where they are. And Mike and me mostly use the quick search now. And now I actually have my color from that actually, right? So if I say, hey, this would be my new palette that I dynamically created. So let's imagine we can dynamically create content that is working by a dynamic scale, like by an extraction of a color that is laying on top of another color.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
much,
let's make some design tokens out of it now.
so much time that you just
Yeah.
bought me back with my life from this tool.
Yeah, and we can actually like, so there's a nice, we have this fun node which we will extend a bit to give you more freedom in color. That was in the old version already, so we can actually say like, what did you say was the name of this color?
No, but
Eggplant.
you have to take that from, yeah.
Yeah, the single one, yeah. So it's dark slate blue.
Blue in my
I know.
way that I'm perceiving it. I don't see blue.
Okay, let's find
Yeah.
a prettier name.
We find a pretty name, but like the idea is what this node does is actually like we have different sources of color names actually that you can select from. We will add them to this node that you can actually select from what you
Or
want to
can just
choose.
change the mix a little bit, right? We'll find a pretty one.
Yeah, we can
Similar,
find that.
Yeah,
similar
if we
to
can
how
break
Stupa Palette does it, where it just like generates a name based on the palette you create. It's kind of
I
cool.
think this one is it like it's still now it's dark slate gray. we didn't move far away. Yeah, so like okay, we can
And
go
now
with
we're
purple.
purple. There we go.
Bird purple, right?
That's not purple. I'm sorry. That's fuchsia. It's like it's
This
definitely
is what
going into the
CSS
thing.
calls purple. No, but you have to look at the left one, right? The color swatch. That's the base color.
That's the one that it takes as base.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
It's
well,
like
at least this is what CSS thinks it's called.
Yeah,
That's
so these are the
interesting.
HTML, CSS names kind of that we use here. Actually, like what this library can do, it can give you even Pantone names. It has X11
Cool.
and 3 other things. Kind of, it doesn't give you the Pantone swatch, right? So that's something different. It gives you a Pantone name that is the closest. So what it does is actually, it takes that color, it does a distance search on all the colors in that name. So it's also a quite heavy node, to be honest. So not a fun thing to use everywhere. And then it looks up what is the closest name and gives you that. So as I said, like the name is very different. Some of them only have 100 names for colors.
That's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
Easter egg idea for Andrew. If you randomly accidentally generate something with the Pantone color palette of the year, like they have the Pantone color every year and it changes. If you randomly generate a palette that has the Pantone color of the year in it, you get some sort of like
Yeah.
confetti or some sort of like, I don't know, rainbow explosion of something awesome.
Does somebody know that game actually? Hues and Cues. Let me see, like if there's just an Hues and Cues. If you go to image, it's always dangerous on a live stream, I know. But like, so you have to describe a color in one word, and people need to put like the cone where they think this color is, and then you can say another one, and then like you actually look where people like where the closest.
So for next live stream, can you build me a FigJam version of that using the Graph Engine so we can play it with our audience? That would be really fun.
Should be able to do this actually, Andrew. Can we do this? Should be able, right? Scale, curve, like full grid. Yeah.
So you got to create the board, and then everybody can go into the same FigJam file, and we'll all take turns.
Put like a stamp there. Yeah, that sounds actually amazing.
Who wants to it'd be super fun.
Yeah. So now that we have our color scale, right, we can name it, and we can now run a array map over that. And because we want our design tokens, right? So in the array map, we want to give each of them a name. So we're gonna just take that array of colors that we have here, put that into the array map. We're gonna open the subgraph, and we're gonna add another thing, and that's actually our color. Let's call it color name. That is clear, and that's a string. We add that input that we just already connect this. So we have our purple, we connect this to here. Now in that array map, we're just going to do, let me zoom out, a short little thing. So we're going to add a stringify, which just changes this index into a number. And then we're going to take a design token. We're going to add that, let me move this over. We're gonna add our color as the value. We're gonna set the type fixed here. We know that it's always running color. This will not change. So we can also hide the port. I'm not gonna add this. Now we need an arrayify. This one will actually make it a bit nicer. At the moment you need to do an arrayify for this. And I'm already connecting the wrong thing first. So we just first need to connect our purple and then our 9. And now what we're going to do is a join array that actually joins these two. We don't need a comma. We actually take a minus. So we have our purple 9 here. Let's put this to the name. I hate lines that go backwards. You know, all know this already. Output that, go to our graph, run this once. And now we have our purple 0 to 9 as a color scale that we can use further down the road.
So cool.
And if we change this up here once, right? So now we're going to do another color. Is it dark slate blue again? Okay, let's take another background color also, that we can mix it up completely. Lime green. So we have our lime green.
My favorite. This color's gonna haunt me forever.
This one. Yeah.
So one interesting question, and I thought in this example we could probably already expand on that a little bit by just showing how that could work. But yes, you can definitely build multi-brand logic. In fact, this entire graph engine was born out of the complexity of multi-brand, white labeling, theming, sub-brands, brand in brand, contextual awareness of anything that's complex. You can pretty much solve it in it, because there's virtually no limitations on how you build your logic, and you'll even be able to execute these things in real time on your component library in code, also in design tools in the future. So yeah, but yeah, like or you can generate tokens out of it in a multi-dimensional way. So I think what Marco is trying to do here is, well, not trying to do, he's actually going to do it, is build us a very minimalistic example of how you could use the graph engine to build dimensions in there for example, multi-brand. So yeah, maybe you want to take over from here, Marco.
Yeah, so what I just did is I added some inputs, kind of like, let me just add some colors, right, for the brand. We're always going to put them on full saturation because we have brands that are perfect and give us great colors for color scale generation. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Yeah, as everybody knows, that's not the reality, but we're just going to go with the flow, okay? Let it be for today. And then we're going to add, like, so we have our input where I can actually select my brand A, B, C, D. Okay. And I'm going to connect this to my condition of that switch. That switch
Marco,
has now
this
connected.
is
Zoom in.
just this is the same demo as what you have. You're adding on to it. So you've built the color scales, and now you're going to change some inputs, which will change the outputs of the scale based on the brand inputs coming into it. So you did these like amazing contrast ratio. We've got 2 colors in there
Yeah,
now.
that is actually like quite stupid to do now. But yes, we're going to do it. Like, anyways, we're going to do, like, we're just going to get an arbitrary color that is based on our brand color.
Mm-hmm.
Could be
Amazing.
used for data visualization, could be used for
Magic color.
actually, let's say, hey, I have a good idea, right? So we want to see how our positive color actually looks on top of each of the brand colors if we mix it in, where we want a contrast that is kind of like on 1.5 at least. So
You're saying semantic positive on top of brand? We want to
yeah,
make
exactly.
that, but
What
we
color
don't
would be the output if we put a green in the alpha on top? Kind of like you have
so
like,
you have a very funky form. It's in your brand color. The form validation says success, and we're going to see what that color is going to look like on
If
the
you have-
brand
yeah,
color.
let's
If you have a
go.
very
Yeah.
funky form. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
crazy.
since I have my decision here, we're going to hide these brands. We set them. We don't need inputs here. Maybe they would come from a token set, right? Somewhere else. And now we are going to add this as our background because the brand is the background. So now we can see, hey, okay, this is actually like tinting quite strongly because we only said we need a contrast of 1.5. So it actually has a very strong alpha and just gives this out. And this would be our scale for that brand for the like positive feedback of that login form, let's say like this, right? But what happens if I now change my brand to the B brand? And you saw like, hey, that actually switched a bit, right? It went a bit more intense. I hope that comes over with screen sharing, kind of,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
now our background color is actually green, and green on green has a very good mix, right? So yeah, that's a bit tricky because it doesn't have enough contrast, interestingly. So if you look closer, green on green doesn't have enough contrast to actually mix these colors. So what we end up with is the pure green that we defined as overlay. But let's switch to brand C. Brand C was actually our like bluish again. So brand C, also not enough contrast. And brand D has some contrast, so it actually is able to reduce the alpha of that green that we have defined and give us a new color. So that is not the perfect example because we probably would use a mix function here, right? To mix these 2 colors together and then give us something and don't base it on an alpha value. But we could also do this. So we have our blend colors here. And let's say we have our color that we want to get in. And then we say we mix it with a green, right? We said this is our green color, and we mix it with like a proportion of, yeah, like, let's say 50%, right? And then we're going to use this one as the output. So we're going to add this here and connect it with both of these. And we probably also want to connect this one here, the preview. Oops. So now we're actually mixing our positive one with this one, and like this is the mixing. So right, like we can play, but like dynamically creates that stuff, and you can see okay where this comes in. And if we just like directly pipe it through our brand color, let me just connect this. We can also do this, and then we get our brand scale. And this allows us to dynamically calculate stuff like the contrasting color on top that comes on top, right? We can have like a full set for each of these steps, because at the moment the output we are delivering here is only one token. But we can also do background and foreground color for each of these colors. So if I now shortly change again our brand in the input to A, you see we have our A scale, B scale, C scale. If you go to the subresolver now, we can actually do contrasting color. Let's define
Subresolver meaning collection of information, right? Like not a subsection of information, but a collection of information.
Yeah, unfortunately that deployment doesn't have this in, so I would need to switch to my local version, because I have like one of a bug that is actually fixed in the PR, but not there. But yeah, you know, like we can do the contrast checker here and say, okay, what color is actually does have a higher contrast? Is it white or black to that background? So we could take in that background. There's a nicer node for this, but I'm going to do it with this one, okay? So
No worries.
we have this one, we add another contrast here. The absolute is actually interesting. In APCA, we should use absolute, because like if your foreground and background change from dark to light to light to dark, you actually can get negative values. And so we're going to add this one. This one is black and this one is actually white. Then we can do a compare. So you can see like we can actually build full logics in this system. I mean, like that's what it's built for. It's not built for the static tokens that we always have. It is built for the logic in between these. So now we have this if statement. If A bigger B.
That animation when you connect the line and it switches with the icon and the color switch is very satisfying to look at. So good job, team. Good job.
Nice.
Thank you very much. So since we don't have this, we're going to set this to a color, this also to a color, set type. And we know the top one was black and the bottom one was actually white. So now I have the if statement, and now I could actually have my Aqua 9. I can do another arrayify where it's also like having an on color. And then I could define, hey, on that color, I get that token. And I think Andrew, I would need to delete my output and add a new one to get like a token array out, right?
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, okay. Let's not do this now. It goes a bit deep. But yeah, you just get the concept, right? We're gonna do some more examples like this of more complex use cases to really show you how this all works. And then you would get like a full token array with color, on color, dynamically calculated on the input color you give it, just one color in. The scale color node might not be the right choice, but like if you have the right plan on how to do this, I'm actually working on a bigger graph that actually gives you your brand color and gives you a well-distributed color scale with your brand color inside of it that actually works.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And the cool thing is that, so you see this scale color node here. You should actually see that as a node that does a number of steps to give you these colors. That means you could also create a number of logic nodes that do certain steps, simple or very advanced. We were recently playing with this article that was written by Matthew Strom and how he generates the color scales, and there's a lot of math involved. You could build a whole logic like that. In fact, Marco already did it. And then the cool thing is, and we don't have the marketplace quite in yet, but it will be there soon. You can already share graphs with each other by just hitting the download button and storing the graph. But we will make it possible to build a logic, store it as a node, and then share it with people. So anybody who's interested, you can kind of modify the node and then it becomes your own. But you can also use other nodes that are made that hold complex logic, because what you can do with it is it's almost infinite. It's in fact quite, even for us, like still there's everyday new things that we learn we can do. We didn't really intend it to do initially. Like it's just, it's crazy once you start to think what all you can achieve once you have some logic that keeps things in control. So yeah, and then being able to share those things, I think that's where it becomes really powerful, where people can share ideas in the form of a graph and say, okay, this is how I solve my color logic, this is how I do my spacing, this is how this relationship is between my sizing and my spacing or my dimensions, or maybe even between the typography and my dimensions, how do I keep those things nicely balanced? And you can describe those relationships and the way you create that. And I think once we can start sharing these, like almost like how we share community files, I think that's really cool. And I really love to see what people are doing with it. It's already mind-blowing to me now. Like every time there's a new user who's sharing what they're doing with it, it's almost never what I expected them to do. But cool stuff. Definitely in the same direction, right? But I mean, it's just interesting to see how people are solving problems. And yeah, I think being able to give a tool that gives you that flexibility to play with different solutions, I think that's really powerful.
Well, and even just to be able to capture the decisions that you make as a systems person to get the outcome that you've got to. So I talked about how in the past I would take a grayscale, pure gray with the number of steps I wanted, and then I would take this opacity layer and I would put it on top until I was happy with the right one, and then I would use a color picker to do the thing. But I just hand over that palette of finished colors. I was like, wow, this beautiful tinted brand color gray. How'd you do that? Like, some layers and whatever. But like, which values, which opacity did I use? And you don't get that from the output. So this is a really cool way to like, document all your wild explorations, and you end up with something you're super happy with. And you're like, well, I'm just going to tweak the input now. Like, okay, new brand color is green instead of blue, and it's this particular shade of green. And you have that. You never have to do it again twice. So you're actually it's like a second brain. It's the designer's brain on a canvas in a visual way. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, but I always feel sorry for the person who comes in next and who's asked to add 2-step to the color palette, which was made with God knows what technology, what steps and what logic, and so that is always fun too.
Well, and like doing it manually the way that I used to do it, right, is I would have like an opacity layer with the brand color. I would try 6%, I'd try 12%, I'd try 18%, I'd try 30%. I'd have that as a component, and then I would swap them over like whole palettes and see, well, which one do I like better? Okay, cool. If they were to come to me later and say, hey, we want to extend this palette to be 24 steps, all the decisions that I made before change. They all changed.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd have to do the whole thing manually, and I did it several times. Like I did this several times, which is why I'm like, my past self is very grateful to where technology is today on all sorts of fronts, but this is like the amount of time you buy back is wild. And then you're like, no, this is the perfect formula. It works. Just do it. Here you go. And I'll share it with the community or somebody else so they don't have to like sit there for 12 hours and figure out what is the percentage of opacity layer you have to put to use a color picker to get your hex code. Like, it doesn't have to happen anymore. Oh, so cool.
So yeah, there's multiple things that we actually like solve with the graph engine, kind of, right? Like we're in early stage, but we solve a lot of things. Actually, scalability is one of the main things, and that's where also Andrew's brain comes in a lot. Like, okay, how do we actually scale this up, right? Like, how do we make this scale? For example, like this Adobe's Token Finder application they have, like where they like needed to program a tool that lets you search through their tokens because the amount of tokens they have. It's just ridiculous. It's just like, way too much. I think they reduced it with Spectrum 2, right? If I'm not mistaken, from Spectrum 1 was their latest release. But the amount they have on tokens is just crazy. And that's through the permutations that they have. So Spectrum is open source, and if you look at them, right, each of their tokens has like different options. So they have like, when I remember correctly, they have like Express and Spectrum, these two platforms kind of. And then in them that you have like 2 breakpoints only. And you already have like 2 themes kind of, 2 breakpoints, so 4 values. Now imagine we would add a density because Adobe has a ton of products, right? Like they have like their video applications where we don't want to scale any icon. I personally used like Premiere. I stopped using it because it crashed like every day, I think. Like I think Premiere is famous for crashing. So I switched to Resolve, which has a node editor, just saying. But like there, you really want the screen real estate. The same for data-driven applications. You also need the screen real estate. You don't want to change anything, right? Yeah, like all of these like high-density applications where you need all that space. We really like kind of want that to be there, right? And so we want maybe density, but for the marketing page that we send out, we might not need like that compact density. We have enough space maybe. So we could actually add a density. Okay, so let's imagine we want 5 densities just to have granularity in switching. What would this mean if we already have 4 tokens and we only have 2 breakpoints? Just saying, right? We don't have not having a tablet, medium-sized desktop, large desktop, whatever, like the 5 breakpoints we normally work with. So what happens if I add 5 densities to this logic? How many tokens do I have?
A lot. Too many.
It's quite easy. 4 by 5, 20.
Too many.
20 tokens for what? So one token actually has 20 values that it comes out to.
Yeah, but that multiplies by 20, a factor of 20 for everything that you have that references that dimension value. So like your entire component library is now multiplied by 20, and that's the number of like calculated permutations you can have. The number just gets infinitely uncalculable.
So you see why that token set is so big?
Well, and it's in the chat I had said earlier, because we talked about the performance issues a little bit in Figma, and I had shared in the chat that the reason that there's a node counter in the plugin is because when I was using the plugin as an early adopter, Jan was like, you have too many nodes in your file. It's just taking too long. You got to split them up between different pages. I'm like, what do you mean? It's a button set, and it's an icon button set, and it's this button set, and it's living documentation. It's not that many nodes. And he was like, hold my beer, let me show you, and put the node counter in there. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, got it. I am running like 70,000 node scans every time I click anything, and I'm clicking 17 things at a time. No wonder the plugin is crashing.
Yeah.
So just on that point, one thing that's usually never mentioned, especially when you start talking about how permutations get crazy. We've written it in our initial resolver spec, and it's a bit technical, but there's a kind of concept of orthogonality when it comes to the different dimensions that you have. So something like brand, something like theme, density, those are all different dimensions you can have. If they have absolutely nothing to do with each other, then they're orthogonal, which means that technically you can vary them completely independently and you don't have to worry about it.
Explain what orthogonal means.
I'm explaining it. So, for example, if when I change the theme, for example, that it doesn't really matter on my other configuration that I have, theme just changes completely independently. So while in total you have X amount of permutations, so your theme times your mode times every other thing that's there. Technically, when it comes to resolution, you don't have to resolve it like 50,000 times to do it. You can kind of do each of them individually and then just resolve it. And then if you were to change one of them, you just change that one portion and you kind of collapse it with the rest of it. It's something you can do to make it go significantly faster, but it's also something that we don't really see for teams unless they get particularly large. Like once you start playing around with like 50,000 tokens or above kind of thing, and you really start noticing performance hits all over the place, that's when you'll probably start adopting it. But one of the things that we kind of hope with the Graph Engine piece is if we can just start giving you like a framework of how to arrange your tokens ahead of time, that you can kind of do this, and it's already kind of pre-laid out for the most part, and you can just use it as a quick start, and it's already got all the best practices baked in. One, you're already set up for scalability. You don't have to. I mean, I can't think of anything worse for a designer than saying, I'd love to make a new component, but hey, quick, I just need to like sort out all my 50 million tokens that I have and try and get it sorted, kind of thing. That it's not particularly exciting. You actually want to work on stuff. So if you just have it that it's there, it's scalable, it's ready, you can just do it. And then the real true idea is, let's say you have someone like a Google Material Design, for example. They've got the manpower to create incredibly good, well-documented graphs that give you a huge amount of flexibility. If you're a smaller studio and you just want to go in on that and you need to do your configuration on top, that's it. All your logic is baked in that. You don't have to kind of reverse engineer a massive Material UI token set and cause a huge amount of like unintended consequences. You know where the change is and you can inject into it incredibly easy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's cool that you can actually visually see the way that things are connected in this canvas layout, right? As opposed to just trying to look at a series of JSON files or a plugin or a spreadsheet or whatever it is and be like, oh, how do I chase this decision up my tree? You can actually see it linearly on a graph and see how, things are going to impact downwind, which is so cool.
Yeah. In the
Yeah,
future,
I don't-
we'll
I
also.
don't think anyone- So I was going to say, I don't think anyone showed, but you can, on your actual nodes as well, you can click on like the trace up and down, which will actually help you visually see this node is affecting all these other nodes, for example.
Ooh, kind of like in token flow, you could click on a node and you
Yeah.
can see the pathway of where it goes back. Similar concept.
Very much like that.
And we also
Yeah, I
gonna
also
add
think
a feature in the future, which is also really nice. So we already have the ability, Andrew is working on that, to actually record how you build the graph. So like in the future, like we know that we want that feature.
Replay.
Yeah, we will have a replay function of like how a graph was actually built.
No. So I get to watch my brain on replay as I build my decisions.
Yeah, like watching
Well,
appropriate
that
thing
and
being
actually
done.
playing the graph as well. Because the idea, so most designers are probably not going to interact with this, but the graph engine is a lot more generic than what we've been using it for. Technically, you can use it to send messages on a WebSocket or extract values out of image, or just even do image processing, which is you can see there's a toy example with audio processing, but we'll probably build on top of that. Technically you have the ability to kind of play your graph and then have it like constantly emit new messages along the way, kind of thing. Do it, and then the debugging feature should allow you to like replay it, so you can actually work out, hey, why did it fail? Well, it got this weird value from somewhere that you never expected because maybe it's an edge case, and now I can go back and do it. So you can kind of use it both in a way of it's very declarative and I'm just doing something very simple, or I need this degree of complexity and I need the tooling to be good enough to support this complex workflow that I'm working on.
Boo. There's actually a really great question, right, Barenko? So I have a multi-brand token system set up, and any advice how to start with the graph engine to learn to work with it?
From
Yeah,
the
well-
beginner's setup. So Andrew mentioned, having things in place as a way to, make it easier when you move into Graph Engine. I'm not sure if Renko is talking about that or what. You guys have been doing this now several times. So what advice do you have for someone who's preparing and is like excited by this, but doesn't know much about how to get started?
Yeah, actually, this is a great time in that sense. Well, it's in beta, right? So we're not expecting you to build your design system on it today, although I think you can start, but officially in beta, so disclaimer is done. But yeah, Marco and I and Andrew as well, we have been jamming with people who are building interesting stuff. So we have a channel on Slack which is dedicated to the graph engine and the node editor. So that's there. We are going to start some more frequent jam sessions, something like this office hour, but where we actually build stuff or with people. Probably we'll not be streaming it, but to have it a bit more comfortable for people. But so we're trying to set up these things because we are also learning what you're trying to build and how you're trying to build it. So if you're interested to share a little bit more about what you're trying to do, we would love to spend some time there or give tips through the channel. Our documentation is absolutely not great at this point. If you figured out what something does and you want to write a few sentences about it, our docs are also open source, just like the rest of the project. You can contribute. But we also try to answer all the questions on Slack and just keep adding on. Yeah, I think at this stage, it's really, that there's definitely some black holes still in terms of documentation and what it does. But yeah, we're really happy to support you. And I think, docs and all that is going to go really quick from here because we're really reaching that stage now. So yeah, let us know what you're doing and we're happy to help you get started.
Yeah. So from sorry.
I was just going to say some generic advice that I can do for this because I've already seen it's mostly an iterative project. There's two pieces. There's normally a case of where you're generating your nodes versus kind of how you want to show how they eventually get squashed down. One of it is generation. The second one is what we call resolution of your nodes in terms of how they scope. I would start off just very simply just working out the dimensions that you have if you're doing resolution only. And then from that, you can use something like your switches with some enumerator controls to say, hey, this is my dark and light mode kind of thing, and use that. And you can use the resolve nodes that we have and get your final one. And then at that point, assuming you're just doing the resolution portion, you can actually just run the graph. You can even just use it on a CLI to do it. The second part, if you're doing your generation, is again, isolate the pieces as much as possible. If a theme doesn't interact with something else, they shouldn't cross over. You can almost keep them as separate as possible. Also just helps with keeping the cognitive load down. And then other thing, this is something we've seen with larger design studios, you don't need to create unnecessary tokens all over the place. One of the really common things is generating massive, huge color scales that are never actually read at all. Don't do that. Just generate the ones that you need to, and then you can sample them at arbitrary points and just use those. I would say do that. Start with your core tokens, generate your semantic layer, as you know, if that's important to you. And then from that, you can start taking a little bit further. Taking a bit further, I would say, is then most likely going the component route. When you do the component route, one thing you can now do that we haven't really mentioned for a lot of ones is think of an idea of context as well. So you had all these dimensions that you have. Those dimensions could also be potentially passed down for your components. If it's a button, if it's on a card, for example, is that something where the button might change? Is it a context-sensitive design? Have it as part of your switch statement going in terms of how you select your specific tokens. And with that moving forward, we'll probably bring up some demos in like the coming weeks to kind of show you exactly how we can start getting to a component level and kind of really just keeping the scope as small and focused on your components as possible. Also just means that you don't have to have a giant, massive token list and kind of try to think about where it comes from. You can literally have it that it's small little isolated pieces, super, super optimized on a per component level. And that should also just allow you to super quickly spin up a new component, get it working immediately.
So for folks who don't have this yet, if you're thinking about you're in Token Studio, the plugin for Figma already, you've got multi-dimensional theming or multi-brand set up, and you want to move over to Graph Engine. If you don't already, take the time to try to map out your flow of information and how things are connected to each other. You can use token flow as a great way to visualize what tokens are not being used. As Andrew said, you might have some there that you created that you forgot about and don't use them. And then, create a little map for yourself so that when you go into Graph Engine, you have this visual map somewhere else documented that you can go in and start to play with and figure out how to connect things if you want to eventually move over into Graph Engine. Is there a way to import my tokens into the Graph Engine and have them work for me? Or what would the process be like if I wanted to?
You can actually literally drag and drop tokens on. If you drag a token file on, it automatically populates and you can start using it.
That's amazing.
There's also something I would love to kind of outline when you start. Just take one of the topics that you work on, right? Like if it's dimension, dimension is influenced by, as we said before, density, by breakpoints, by multiple things, right? That's one of the dimension things. And you can have your spacing, your typography, all related, right? So you just start one axis, then go color at the latest point, because I think color is just a lot of things. But for example, if we have this dynamic input, you want to create your, let's say, categorical colors or data visualization colors also dynamically based on your brand color, right? You want to say, hey, this is my brand color, and I want to change that. And I shortly want to show this because it's just a mess now in the screen, but I just wanted to share. It's just to say, hey, okay, so we have our primary color, and I actually wanted to create my categorical colors that actually work together with that primary color. And what I'm doing is just having a color wheel that rotates 360 degrees on the hue, takes the same saturation and lightness that the brand has. So if I now actually go to my input and switch my brand to A, you could see it how all the colors just switched, right? And you have your categorical colors. Then you could run an array, kind of run through it, filter by contrast, sort them by contrast, take the one with the highest contrast, remove it from the array, and by that sort them actually by contrast, which categorical color comes first, that you always have sufficient contrast to the next color. So you can have like full dynamic creation of these colors. And then you could also say like, hey, I don't want them on the same level. You could take a sinus curve and actually apply the sinus curve to your lightness, give it some boundaries, kind of like where it actually influences, and then you could say, hey, go lighter and darker on the other colors to add more contrast. Okay.
Yeah, this is brilliant for data visualization, for example.
Yeah.
And I love this idea that I can pull in my quote unquote dumb tokens and make them smart. That's what you just told me I could do.
Yeah.
I could pull in my dumb tokens, they'd be there, and then I can start to add my logic. Okay, this is my brain, this is what I want it to do, this is how I want it to work, and it just will do it for me. So I don't have to painfully do everything and then create more dumb tokens for my very smart decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
also like do logic decisions, right? Like, hey, to say like, okay, this rotation, I want now the complementary color, or like, right, like all this, like I want to go tri-complementary and quadric or everything. You can have like very intense logics, like in a way that, yes, it is a bit of a learning curve, but it's a lot easier than writing in code and setting up a full project and all the surroundings. And we try to add more and more nodes to make it easier for you. We just try to really like get you into better flow. So yeah, we shared this version. We're also working on making the UI a bit cleaner. So maybe I can share like actually like there's it's not in PR yet, but there's a branch we're working.
Sharing something in the middle
Ah.
because we have the O-line node also, and it just reminded me because you were talking about all these different.
Yeah.
And we will be building some of these visualizations as well in the panels, right? Where you can actually compose color palettes, and you can see it changing on the left here the whole time, right? So I don't know if you've ever played with this, but this is a really cool tool that shows you a color library and all these things that Marco spoke about, right? And different ways to generate these scales. And this has a lot of options, and we have this as a node in the graph. So like you could literally access all these functions and you know.
Yeah.
That's
quite nice.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let me go back.
And so what we try now, we want to make this a bit nicer for you as a user, right? So what will change in the future is we're going to remove like this taskbar kind of like thing, and we're going to move to an action bar where you're adding a node will be just like here. So you can actually like reduce your interface and make it like less cluttered and just like have a simple action bar. We still would love input and outputs to be there, right? Mike loves a working mode where he actually pulls the input panel out. So you will have the option just like put your panels where you like it to have like a really clean version to work. And then it looks like, right? Then it's like a very minimalistic experience in working, and you can just like change your inputs and outputs here. And that's very amazing to actually work with and see what this does.
I like it like this because usually my cursor is a lot closer to the panel, right? When I'm working there.
Exactly.
I drag it around and.
Yeah, so as you can see, like there will be some funny AI features we will add at some point. We're like adding stuff like this. We have some placeholders that we haven't built yet, but we're working on. You will have your zoom kind of, so you can already do viewports. I only have 1, 2 here as a placeholder, but I can say, hey, this is actually my viewport, so let's save this as viewport 1. And I have my another node that is actually important for me, which is my rim map, that's viewport 2. And then I want to have one viewport, which is like the 3. And now if I press 1, 2, 3, I can actually jump between them. So I have my anchors where I know, hey, actually, like, this is where I'm currently working. Like sometimes you need to change something at the beginning, sometimes and at the end, and you can just like easily jump between these 2 points.
Yeah, especially when you're building your multi-dimensional system, right? But we spoke before earlier, where you have your dimensions like density or brand, and you have that's somewhere in the input, and you have a lot going on, right? You just want to be able to quickly jump to that node, change your inputs, jump back to where you're working, just see how that affects. So that's really awesome. Efficiency boost,
Exactly. Then we have alignment functions. So you actually like for all of us little monks here that like need like their nodes finally like really nicely aligned and distributed. I definitely am one of these. You can align your nodes together. You have your play controls. Then you have your panels that we can do. You can actually save your layer and like we.
What are play controls?
The play controls. Andrew mentioned that before, right? So we have the option to play audio files and everything. So. Yeah, that's there. Some settings, help, like documentation, upload video, and the share function. So let's see. We're working on it. This is work in progress. We are like, if you look at our repo, you see we have like daily commits and pushes, and like there's like a lot of movement now.
Marco, there's a question on the screen from Renko, who's got the best questions so far this afternoon.
Oh yeah, it's actually on the top of my list, to be honest.
Yeah,
because
Mike also wants this.
Yeah, I really wanted more contextual. Like, I want one panel. Like, and we have been having this interesting discussion because some people really love the panels docked from the right side, and yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I like them very close to where I'm dragging nodes in and just where I'm building. But I don't like switching between inputs and outputs. So yeah, I've been asking the team to give me something where if I click on any, either on the left side or the right side, maybe even on the node, that it automatically opens either inputs or outputs on the panel, or if I click on any of the connectors, right, that I can directly type into the input field of that in the panel. I think that will really help when you're building, that you don't really have to move your mouse so much and go into these fields. So yeah, we're definitely working on that. It's quite an interesting UX because there's a lot of focus states going on. So yeah, but yeah, we're definitely working on that. I'm actually looking forward to that.
Yeah, what I'm pushing the team towards, because I'm a heavy Stream Deck user, I'm pushing that we get like a nice connection Stream Deck and like have a profile that you get like all your notes and everything on the Stream Deck, and you just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
That's my wish,
Maybe
so that you have something
cool
like, can I actually like write it? So I don't know if this is reflecting right, but this is kind of like
this is good.
my Figma setup for the Stream Deck to show all of this, and you can even go like, okay, in typography, and yeah, you just bought it, and then in typography you have all the settings for typography, so all of this stuff kind of like, and I really love to use these macros.
This is for Mike. It's got the radio knobs. No, we do the ASMR version.
Yeah, I know. Like, oh, the ASMR. Nice one.
There's also like an
Yeah.
actual click.
Oh, I like this one better.
And you can fully map and design the own backgrounds. And this thing actually, when it's working, it's swipe and you can change it. You can,
Yeah.
man, I'm having too much fun with it. I'm having
Yeah?
too much fun with it.
No, nice. Let me know when you find your use cases. I've been thinking about it, like what else I can do to control the volume. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, as someone who's like mixing music for a long time now, I love a radio knob. It's my favorite for anything. It's the best.
yeah. I used to have a thing on my desk. This is my Space Mouse, but like I used to have a knob just like this, and the device was literally called the knob. And it just had like only one function. You could just click it and turn it, and it was just this huge aluminum like machined thing, and I loved it. Yeah, it's good.
There's a lot of keyboard enthusiasts out there who are really into the keyboard that has the one tactile knob on it.
Yeah.
You can map to the same thing. So
Yeah.
This one,
Like the Keychron, right? Like this one. Wait, like this one.
yeah. No, the ASMR version.
Does it look like? Actually, it looks very nice. It's light. This 2.5 kilo heavy brick. Yeah. To be conscious of time, like right, we are not taking long in our live streams. We have 2.5 hours. I think it's 2 in the morning.
By surprisingly fast.
They always go by so fast, yeah. And we could go probably for another 2 hours. But I would say, like, for everybody in the chat, also for Renko, like send us these kind of like questions you have, like also on Slack and somewhere. We love to prepare some sessions where we actually build and solve like these problems in the Graph Engine in the next streams. One thing we didn't talk about, Sam, is actually like, are we having a public or like Tokens fans like watch party next week?
A public one. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I set up an internal watch party for the config keynote. If anyone is unfamiliar, we're talking about Figma's big conference, which is happening next week. They always
I'm pretty sure there's people unfamiliar.
They always rock our socks. So we're seeing what's happening. I don't know. Let's think about it.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to add questions to Office Hours topics, there is a channel in our Slack community for Office Hours. So that's a great place to put off. If you're like, hey, I want to see this on Office Hours, that's a good spot to just dump your ideas. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining in. It was a pleasure as always. I hope to see you
Yeah.
next time. I think we're gonna shift time zone once, right? For the next one, that we actually like.
Yeah, we wanted to make it a little more friendly, right? And inclusive.
Yeah,
for people
exactly.
in other time
Inclusive.
zones.
Yeah, so we want to
Yeah.
shift a bit.
I think
So,
you guys just want to see what my space looks like with all the lights on behind me, like your daytime, my nighttime. We're just gonna flip the themes.
Yeah, we're gonna
so
switch
you'll be
us between light and dark mode.
yeah. So you'll be light mode and I'll be dark mode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds
cool, cool.
amazing. Cool. Thanks everybody for joining in. I wish you all a nice evening. I'm gonna try that sound feature. What do we want? Dance pop, acoustic cinematic, daydreaming. What do you want?
Yeah.
Sam is our DJ. Sam, you select the music.
Or when you get a bug, it might push a button for a bug. Or,
No, like you can go to brand in StreamYard and select the music to play now.
Oh, well
Into
then,
space.
Background music.
brand.
And then we're gonna end the stream.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just before we end the stream, let me quickly paste in the beta link over here as well.
Well, I'm not going to click the one that says feeding the ducks because I'm afraid of what's going to happen.
Do it.
Yeah.
Just want to know what it is. Ah, super chill. Come on. Okay.
No, we're going to go with
Yeah.
into
Into space.
space. See what happens. I
Okay.
haven't previewed any of these. These are I was digging the feeding with the ducks, so I don't know. I'll have to play around with it for next time. But on that note, have a great day, evening, night, morning, wherever you're at. Hope you have a nice weekend. Can't wait to hear about all the config tea. If we set up a watch party, I'll put it in the office hours channel in our Slack community. So with that,
Yeah.
bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See you next time.